Eric, if you want to put that flag up, we'll get ready to pledge when 6 o'clock rolls around. And I think it is right now. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You've tuned in to the June 24th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. Got a pretty healthy group of participants, and we've got a rather lengthy agenda, and we're short a couple people. So let me first go through and introduce everyone as far as the board is concerned. My name's Chuck Euler. I'm the chairman of the board. With us tonight as board members are Ryan Stachek. Chuck, are you there, Ryan?
I am here, yes.
Bob LaCourse. I saw Bob there, so I assume he's on mute.
Muted.
Okay. And Amanda Van Lyken.
Hi, present.
Okay, Amanda stepping up to the big girl seat, and we look forward to your participation this evening, Amanda. Also joining us includes our recording secretary, John Rovitella. Representing the MRB group, we have Greg Hotaling. We have Christian Nadler's on call. Should we require legal advice, but he can be on standby. Hopefully we won't need him. And at the keyboard, running the whole operation is Eric Cooper, our town planner and director of development. Okay, for new folks who have not been part of this virtual meeting, what we do is with each application, we have the applicant make a presentation, and upon the presentation, the board members have the opportunity to comment and ask questions of the applicant. Once that is completed, then I will open the floor up to anyone in the audience who would like to speak on that specific application. Once we are done hearing from the public, we will go back to the applicant for any closing remarks, and then the board will deliberate and take action on the application immediately following the discussion. If you should want to talk, please state your name and address for the record and speak clearly and loudly. And with that being said, I will move to taking anyone out there that wants to speak on something that is not on the agenda. We call this privilege of the floor. Now's the opportunity to bring something to the board's attention. If there is anyone, please raise your hand or speak up or forever hold your peace. Okay, we're going to move on then. All right, the first item on the agenda is a continuation of public hearing we started last meeting. It's in regard to Samuel Casella, owner of property at 4047 Woolhouse Road. Sam would like to do a single stage subdivision to subdivide his parent parcel of 43.6 acres into 4 lots of different sizes. The property is located in the AR2 zoning district. Sam, I think you're with us by phone. Good to talk to you. Good to hear from you. Sorry we had to bring you back tonight, but there were a couple questions that had come up and you weren't available to answer them last meeting. So you're here tonight. So just tell us a little bit about what you're doing out there, Sam. You know, it would be interesting to hear a little bit about what the people in agriculture are doing in our town. So if you could give us an update on your specific property and your plan for your subdivision, that would be appreciated.
Sam, Chuck, how are you? I'd be happy to. By the way, just for public notice, I told Eric my wife Debbie is here with us as well. Chuck, there are 2 parcels, 2 separate parcels, 2 separate tax numbers, which I'm sure you know. Your description didn't seem to accurately depict it. The roughly 47 acres is the one parcel that's on Rozier Road and Woolhouse, and that's where the 6 point something acres is being subdivided. The second parcel, a different tax map number that's south of the property, that's on the old Munson farm, that's at 2.001 acres.
Okay.
What I'm doing is subdividing, again, that 14.8 acres, which is the south part of my farm, to leave just a tad over 2 acres to meet the minimum lot size. And then the larger parcel, which is right behind my barns, the roughly 47 acres or 43, I've got a tax map in front of me, to make that a legal parcel that would also allow the future use to perhaps have a horse on it, because we don't know where we're going to be in many years to come, Chuck. I'm not as young as you are. So in doing this, as some of you may or may not know, the town came to me. I've applied for a PDR. It was approved by the town, as well as my neighbors up Rozier Road, Rick Damon and his son Justin. In order to do that, if I'm going to do any subdivision of the properties, should the PDR be ultimately granted, and there's a lot of steps to go through yet, I had to separate these lands now. That's what brought this to your board this evening. And by the way, I'd like to apologize for missing the meeting 2 weeks ago. I know Eric told me, he sent me a ton of emails, him and Michelle. I apologize. I honestly forgot about it, and that's the truth. So that's where we are here.
Okay, well, appreciate your information. So the subdivision of the PDR is aided by the subdivision. I won't say conditional because you haven't gotten approval yet. So the subdivision is, I hate to use the pun, part and parcel to the PDR.
Well, you can use it as a premise as to why we're doing it now, but in relative terms, as you know, Chuck, we always could subdivide off of a parcel of property that met or exceed the current town zoning code. But what's moving it forward now is yes, that's the correct answer. It's either do it now or do it sometime later in some description if the PDR ultimately doesn't pass muster.
Okay. So you would go ahead with this, with or without the PDR. This is your plan. I know you have a building lot, a 2-acre lot down on Bullhouse, and I know you have a family that might be interested in building something there in the future, and that's wonderful. And where are we with in the PDR process? You have applied. You said you were approved, but approved by the town, but not approved by the state. Is that where we are?
And Chuck, that's how the process works. The town has to put together their final application. I went in and was interviewed by the committee that did that work, as were other applicants. And again, I don't really think that has anything to do with the planning board, but I'm more than happy to tell you this. Where we are right now, because this is not uncommon. I did these before when I was town supervisor. You may know that the farmer may want to keep a parcel for a child, for themselves, whatever the case may be. If you're going to subdivide something, it's got to be done before the PDR happens. I'm being redundant. Right now, the way the town is, once this subdivision request is reviewed and addressed by the planning board, that allows Doug Finch, and I don't know if Eric is part of this or not, but Doug has been my contact with this and that committee to move it forward, package it, and send it on to New York State Department of Ag and Markets. That's the next step. Then it has to be among the parcels that the grantor, which would be New York State Department of Ag and Markets, approves. And that's how the process works every year.
Okay, all right. That's very helpful. That answers a lot of the questions I had. Anyone else on the board? Bob, Brian, Amanda, have any questions on the subdivision?
This is Bob. I don't have any on this one.
Ryan, you have anything?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for Sam.
All righty. Shoot.
Hi, Sam. It's Ryan Stachak here.
How you doing, Ryan?
Good. Sam, I just wanted to kind of talk about quite honestly, I think I understand why we're going through with this and breaking it up, but it was a little surprising because I feel like you're such a strong advocate for agriculture, and I just wanted to kind of explore that a little bit tonight and talk about the fact that we are making a subdivision here on of pretty good agricultural land. And if I understand right, like you're subdividing this because that once you get if you were to receive a PDR, then you would not be able to subdivide it in the future. Is that
Well,
correct?
That is correct.
And so if you do not receive funding from the state for a PDR, would you then reverse the subdivision and make it go back to the original parcels again?
I don't think so. I could, I might, but this is private property and there's 3 parcels here. There's the 14 point some odd acres south of Cheshire, the Munson Farm. There's a home farm, which is close to 47 acres. There's another parcel you've not seen because it's not part of this. It is part of the PDR application that's behind my house, and that's just short of 11. These are 3 different separate tax parcels, the way my mother and father set up the will. And the house I live in is on 5 acres, which again is not part of the PDR. This is just FYI. This is our land. It's my family's land. And as we go forward, that's why I was very strongly a strong advocate for the PDR before the town board ever consider it. We had some pretty interesting conversations about this, Ryan, back in 2000. And we got into the comp plan. We pushed it a little harder. The public spoke. They said this isn't a bad idea. Some of the farmers didn't want it. I explained to them the benefits and the pitfalls. Once you do this and it's approved, you're not going back. It's a one-trick pony. So a PDR doesn't fit all farmers all the time. Now, that's just my personal opinion, but that's a little FYI that how I feel.
What are some I'm sorry, I'm having an issue kind of hearing a lot of the sound for some reason, Eric. I don't know if that's happening to anybody else or if it's just happening on my end. Sam, I know that you advocate for protecting of agriculture. What are some strategies that the planning board could implement in order to help protect agricultural lands in the town of Canandaigua?
Well, that's done through legislative action, Brian, and I'm sure Eric knows that. That's either the PDR, conservation easements, term conservation easements. You're aware of the ones going on south of Cheshire. That's through the Finger Lakes Land Trust. They generally don't have much money, and money's the real issue here. That's why, again, I just have to be candid. While I was supervisor, and I'm not any longer, but when I was a strong advocate of proper reserves for financial planning. One of the ones that I created was an open space reserve. And when I left office, at the last day in my office, I put it was $1.3 million in that reserve. Much of it's not there anymore. But the way PDRs work, conservation easements, and all those other things that I've been part and parcel with and still are actually involved in, not in the town of Canandaigua, it takes money. It takes a dedicated fund of money, which in our case was the open space reserve. Or if you have a grantor like the state, or if you have a land trust, and a lot of them don't have a lot of cash. But those are the mechanisms that the town can put in place, and they have in the comp plan and then the PDR program, which they moved aggressively with after I left office. I'm very proud of that. I got it started. They picked up and ran with it. That's done. But it also takes money, Ryan, and it also takes a willing landowner. It's private property. We just can't get by that, Ryan. Nobody here helped my mom and dad pay the bills during the tough years and the blizzards and the drying summers. This is private property. Well, it's my farm, yours, or somebody else's. It's whether or not they want to participate in these programs and what is the carrot out in front of them to say, hey, this is a good deal. Because for some lands, it won't work. The debt load's too high, the family can't agree on it, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to go there tonight because it's nobody's business. But my family has discussed this PDR. If it happens, and again, if it's a mutual agreed upon appraisal, which that's got to happen too, and then the money has to be in the governor's budget. There is right now for 2020. Mine gets in the queue, I think, in 21. And who knows what the governor's going to have to put in his environmental fund. I mean, I deal with that from all the soil water districts, and I'm president of the New York State Soil and Water District. He's been very supportive of these types of programs, including the PDRs, but also environmental programs in general, conservation districts. If the money is tight next year, that could shoot these programs in the foot. There won't be enough money to go around. There's always more applicants across the state, folks, than there is funding through the state of New York. And that's not being harsh on them. They got a lot of bills they got to pay.
Anything else, Ryan?
No, I just kind of wanted to talk about, I support it, Sam. I think that you're a good advocate for agriculture, and it was, I don't necessarily understand why the 6.5 acres of the wooded lot cannot be part of the PDR, but I guess that's your, I mean, it just seems like they could be a part of the PDR, but maybe it doesn't fit the PDR for agricultural lands as
No,
clean
and-
as workable land.
Let me jump in. You have to have a minimum of 5 acres in the town of Canandaigua in order to own a horse. Don't lose sight of that. My wife loves horses. We got 2 beautiful stalls in the barn across the street. If you're going to cut off a piece of parcel, and you see a lot of them in the town of Canandaigua, not just on my farm, off of other people's farms and off of vacant land, you're going to see 5+ acres for that reason, if in fact you want to have a horse or livestock. That was a driving factor for that. Second, Ryan, if you look on the survey map, which I'm sure you must have in front of you, that's the 3rd iteration because someone wanted some topos on it and Parnell got on it and did it. The reason that lot goes all the way back to the south line makes all the sense in the world. That has little value for agricultural purposes, but certainly you don't want to have a neighbor up behind you. It's the land that I already own. So it made a lot of sense to use some of that land to comprise the 5+ acres to utilize the land out in the open field towards Rozier Road for, typical pasture and things. You're a country guy, you know what I'm talking about. That's why the lot was configured that way. I was going to go with a flag lot and just come in from, because I was on our ZBA for years too as chairman, from the easterly line, come in maybe 50 feet. Well, the bottom line is, folks, if you've come out and looked at this as a farmer, you got to get 50 foot out of that property line between me and Mr. Strickland to be able to do anything. Between the trees and the shade, I don't even plant there. It's open, but nothing grows. And if you go to the southern portion of that, I hope I'm not giving you too much information, of that open lot off of Rozier Road, you get up to that woods where the line jogs down a little, Ryan, you're talking about. If you come in from that woods, and you can see it from the road, I've got to stay at least 45 feet away from that woods, and it's wide open land. Nothing will grow because of the trees that shade it. It's literally plain agronomy. So I came down, I went into the woods a little bit, to be candid with you. Then I went straight back to the south line. And that's how you come up with it. That 6.5 could have been 6, could have been 5.9. It's like shooting a arrow when we were trying to get this thing done. There was snow on the ground. And I said, at least make sure you get me a good 5.5, 6 acres, Mr. Surveyor, and that's what he did. The final number is inconsequential. It doesn't come into any more farmland. It's still into the woods.
So I guess, and I think I agree with you, Sam. I understand that. But if it was 7 acres, then it would be allowed to have any agricultural uses according to our schedule. Is that correct, Eric?
No, 5 acres is the allowable use limit, like Sam said, for horses. 7 acres is where you get into like the state-regulated agricultural districts or county-regulated districts.
And what's the current zoning now, Eric?
AR2?
They are too.
And so in the AR2 zoning, according to our schedule, if I go to our schedule, the permitted uses, if it's minimum lot size of 7 acres, we allow for agricultural uses and structures.
I believe, first off,
Right
I
at the
think
top
that has been, I think that number has been changed when the town recently adopted, it was like the agricultural law that changed to essentially any lot could have agricultural uses regardless of the acreage. It's just a 5 acres for the keeping and breeding of, whatever livestock you had.
I understand that. So that was my main concern, is that if it was another half an acre, but it would meet that threshold of 7 acres. But you're saying that's null and void right now. That right now, according to I don't have the current, I got the same one in front of me, but the current schedule right now for that parcel going forward would be allowed any agricultural use and structure according to our current schedule?
No.
Yes.
Ryan, you're also confusing what Eric tried to tell you, the Ag District Law, which is a minimum of 10 acres, which you didn't mention.
Yeah.
That wouldn't apply here because there is not 10 acres. And it has to be 10 acres of land that grossed $10,000, or it was operated by an acknowledged farm operation that grows $10,000 or more. Either way, none of these fit that criteria.
I understand that that's through the county. That's the
No.
only reason, Sam,
Sure.
I'm just concerned with, and that it's okay. I'm just bringing it to attention that it was my understanding the reason I had a question about the 6.5 acre lot was to allow any future landowner, whomever that is in the next 100 years, that if they had a 1/2 acre or more, I thought that would allow them more flexibility to do any other agricultural uses and structures. And I thought it would be good to try to preserve that flexibility for the future landowner in time. But I just want to, if you're aware of that and you're okay with 6.5 compared to 5, I just wanted to bring that to the attention. I support this development. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Ryan. And also, I do think, just for your edification, the 7 acres is not a number that comes into play here. I really want to assure you that. It's 5 or above is where I was going. And the bulk of this land that's wooded, I had it logged 4 years ago. The DEC forester come out. Bryce did a nice job. It never been logged. He said 20 years from now, maybe send somebody up there again. The land that's left predominantly wouldn't be for agriculture anyways, and it wouldn't constitute a New York State Department of Agriculture Ag District woodlot. You wouldn't have enough acres there, Ryan. I kind of know this stuff. And the land coming in 200-foot width off of Rozier Road back to the edge of the woods is a little over, I think Parnell and I figured about 2.4 acres. But that's going way into that hedgerow to Strickland's farm, which you wouldn't farm anyways. Just trying to give you the full picture for your own benefit. I appreciate your questions. Some apply to my application, some don't. But that's why we're contemplating doing what we're doing.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Additional questions for me. This is Amanda.
Am I hearing someone, or is it just a feedback?
Uh, it was Amanda. Sorry.
Oh, hi, Amanda.
For me.
Sure. Got a question?
No questions for me. Just confirming I'm all set.
All righty. Anybody out there in the audience would like to speak regarding this application? Sam, I appreciate your giving us the status of the PDR, and I know one of the reasons we asked, because I know the Ag Advisory Committee had brought this up also, and we just wanted to make sure it was clear to everyone as to where you stood out there. Certainly, if you are successful in getting the PDR, that will put further restrictions on your property, because the PDR certainly limits any development or any uses of the property other than agriculture. So I think the concern that the ECB had regarding the conservation of the woods, and they mentioned a conservation easement. I don't think that's necessary because, again, the PDR would certainly put those kind of limitations on the property. Just looking through any other comments from third parties. We did not hear from, or we're not required to hear from the County Planning Board. I mentioned the ECB. They had asked about the PDR details also, as well as the woods. Let's see, Jim Fletcher did not comment. You do have a drainage ditch that goes through there, but that's not subject to any floodplain or woodlands, right, Sam?
That is correct.
Okay. You did request a conservation subdivision waiver. Eric, do you have a date on that?
I thought we said that he didn't because it wasn't required.
Okay,
That
maybe
was
Yeah,
the question.
Chuck.
maybe that I have a question mark after it, so maybe it was a question as to whether it was needed.
I didn't request.
Okay.
There was no requirement for conservation subdivision.
Eric is correct on that.
Very good. All right. Well, all that being said, I think we're ready to close the hearing. So I will close the hearing regarding the Casella subdivision application, and we can move ahead to the seeker. This is a unlisted action So it does have a part 1 submitted by the applicant and part 2 and 3 submitted, put together by our engineer and by representing the town planning board. So if someone would like to make a motion regarding action on the seeker determination.
This is Bob. I'll make a motion to approve the seeker for, you moved it, Eric. Sam Casella, 4-lot subdivision, 4047 and 000 Woolhouse Road in the AR2 zoning district.
Thank you, Bob. Do I have a second?
This is Amanda, the second.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, I have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's move on to the subdivision itself. Just scroll down to the any conditions we may have involved with this. Yeah, there's nothing major there. The thing about the buildable sites. All right, it looks SOP, folks. So if someone's willing to give me a motion, I would certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll do that motion. Hey, this is Bob. Eric, can you roll down just a sec? Thank you. I'll make a motion to accept the single stage subdivision plan for Sam Casella 4-lot subdivision at 4047 and 0000 Woolhouse Road in the AR2 zoning district, CPN 20-027.
Do I have a second?
This is Amanda, I second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor of the single stage subdivision for Sam Casella, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? All right, Sam, you're on your way. Sorry to bring you back, but it was good to talk to you.
Chuck, it was good to talk to you. Can I just say one thing? I appreciate the review you folks have made in this, and I hope you can appreciate this should another longtime landowner, perhaps farmer, come in. These are very challenging decisions to make, and Chuck, you might know this because you know my cousin Tommy. I was born in this house, and it's really tough to figure out how you plan your future, you know, what your health is going to be like. I've got a brother and 2 sisters, and when you start talking about, you know, whether it's Ryan or somebody else, how you're going to manage these assets, there's generally a whole lot of people involved. And fortunately, I got a wonderful family. He just thinks, for some reason, thinks I'm a great guy. But it can be challenging, and I want you folks to know that it isn't always easy when you're talking about real estate and separating it and all the things that go along with it, but that's for another board to have to worry about. I apologize for missing the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I want to give Eric a heads up. This young man was all over me, constantly in contact with me. I dropped paperwork off to Michelle because of this COVID thing, and I really appreciate the way that I was treated and got this thing facilitated. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. God bless the farmers, no doubt about it.
All right, Chuck. We all done? Can I sign off?
You can sign
You're
off.
good.
Be good to your
Thank you,
wife.
sir. All righty.
All
Good
right.
night.
All right, moving on, folks. We're moving on to an application that's very familiar to us. It's BME Gerber representing Anthony Cassiano, owner of property at 5157 Overlook. It's a revision to the final subdivision grading plan for Old Brookside, section 6. The dwelling was built about 3 feet higher than it should have been, and that I guess set off some grading issues. Whether they were all related to the foundation of the first floor being higher or not is totally to be discussed. But I guess since the last meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, and Greg, you can jump in here if need be, because I know hopefully Lance briefed you on this, that BME, and is there anyone representing Gerber or BME on that line?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is James Creticos with BME.
Hi,
I believe
James. Thank you.
John and Bruce from Gerber Homes are also on the line with us this evening.
Okay,
Yeah, John and
thanks.
Bruce Gerber here. Bruce.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so again, the concern was that as a result of the first floor elevation being higher than it should have been, which was in violation or not violation, but in contradiction to the approved plan, it meant coming back to us and getting an approval to amend the grading. And when we started getting into that, we found out that there were some issues on an adjacent lot, specifically lot 50, and whether those issues were related to the what happened on lot 38 was to be determined. And I think since our last meeting, Gerber and the Gerbers and BME have gone out, reevaluated the area, and come up with a proposal design to resolve any issues that may have resulted from the regrading, as well as any issues that may involve lot 50. So have I said that correctly, everyone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of reiterate some of the ongoings, approximately a month ago, I know Bruce and John met with Mr. Pigeon out in the field. They reviewed his lot, the drainage configuration and pattern out there. They basically reviewed in the field the proposed configuration we have here, which is just to reestablish the rear yard swale specifically in lot 50. This proposed plan is based off of current survey that we just completed about a month ago. And the plan was prepared and submitted, I believe on the 12th, so about 2 weeks ago. This plan right here really tries to limit the improvements to just lot 50. That's really where the issue is. Again, this plan is consistent with the original subdivision approval. There was always meant to be a swale in the back of lot 50 here with a high point mid in the lot, and the drainage patterns kind of splitting east and west, as you see with the flow patterns. Yeah, so here's the original approval. You can see the high point in the middle of the lot with drainage kind of heading to inlet D5 as well as inlet DA 1.1. So with the current plan, the grades are a little bit different. This whole area is a little bit higher, but the lot was kind of constructed flat, which is where the ponding of the water and the poor drainage specific to here, even though it is the high point in the swale, is occurring. So it just really didn't allow water to move properly through that area and away from his house. So by cutting down the back of this lot, removing some of the material, we can redefine the swale. Again, the improvements are really limited to lot 50 with the exception of having to probably reset that boulder row between lot 50 and 49. We do need to lower that area by about 1.5 feet just to make sure we've got, good slopes in all these rear yards. And then concurrently with all that, when they were on site, they reviewed the drainage for lot 38 in detail, and there really is no runoff contributing from that lot into lot 50, and the issues, with this modifications necessary are really unrelated. But it still will be a good improvement for Mr. Pigeon on lot 50 just to recreate his drainage pattern.
Are the existing contours, the actual existing contours, is that based on a field survey?
Yes, this is a field survey completed approximately 3 weeks ago. So we topoed the whole area, back of lots 51, down and south here, just to make sure that we weren't missing any thing, just obviously when you meet in the field, sometimes the slopes and grades are a little bit deceiving, but everything's consistent with, the original plans at this point.
It's just that where you have that swale crossing the property line from 50 on to 49, it just seems so high there. The grade actually looks like it's coming up, and it just seems like you'd have one heck of a cut to create that swale. But you had said something about 1.5 feet. That's what you have to do?
Yeah, so right at the property line there, you can see the spot elevation, the 854.5.
Yeah.
The existing contour is 856 right there. So we're basically going to cut down 1.5 feet there. It'll feather out a little bit into lot 49 just to catch grade. And then we're going to slope back up. I think it's about I believe it's a 2% slope up to the high point, which is typically what we would recommend as an engineer, as a designer, that'll get you good positive drainage. You can go down to, something like 1% and still get there, but this is definitely will get rid of that water out of that backyard.
Specific to lot 38, the berm that runs along the property line between 38 and I guess 37, and then comes down along the back of 38, abutting 40. Who put that in and why?
I believe that was kind of established just with the overall grade. I don't think there was ever an intent to have a berm there. I think with the construction of lot 37 and lot 50 occurring previous to lot 38, when Gerber went out to construct lot 38, it just, the back of the lot was higher, which initiated the raising of the house pad and kind of started us down this whole process. Again, none of that grade being higher there really didn't affect lot 38 in any way. That still provides good positive drainage.
Yeah, I think by being 3 feet higher, it's certainly everything's run away from it. So it's just I think our concern is what effects it have on the adjacent properties. And getting back to the berm, it just, from my observation, it seems that berm along 37 and 38 prevents water from flowing off 37 onto 38. Go to the next. Well, that's between 38 and 39. Oh, you got it with the pot. The planters, the pot. Yeah, that berm. This is along. If you're looking up ahead on the photo, it's the property line between 37 and 38. And water, I think, runs off 37, hits the berm, and then kicks toward this pot. And now we're on lot 50. And I figured that might have been contributing to the water that normally would have gone across lot 38, but it was diverted with this diversion berm down behind lot 50. Is that a possibility? Of course, when I was out there, it was bone dry. Yeah, right along there, that seems that berm's kicking the water right to that corner, that common corner between 37, 38, and 50.
Correct. Yeah, that may occur there, but obviously the drainage intent from between the lots is always going to generally be to drain from midpoint of the house pads to the rear. So if you look at the original grading plan that was approved, there's always an intent of draining runoff from between those lots and down kind of into this common area toward that inlet.
Yeah, but it was a side yard swale with water coming off 37 onto 38 and then conveyed through the rear yard of 38, eventually down to that yard inlet. But I think the berm has precluded that from happening because it's being kicked now toward lot 50.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this doesn't show the grading approved from the original house pad. But if you did see it, you would still see that the runoff is directed from lot 37 toward the rear. I understand what you're saying about this berm kind of kicking it a little bit.
Keeps going back to the berm. I know the Cassianos are on the call.
Yes.
Is that berm something that you love and cherish as much as your children? I mean, it just, go ahead.
It was something that, that we put in for landscaping and for just a division between the property. It didn't appear to us that was going to cause any issues or any problems when it was put in, and it was never really brought to our attention that was an issue. So,
and there wasn't a swale there when we did it. There was just land. So for privacy and for landscape purposes, because we're backing up to everybody's property, we thought, let's plant some trees. So when they were grading, I just said, can you give me a little bit of a berm so I can raise the trees up a little bit for privacy? That's all it was. And I asked my neighbor next door on lot 37, do you have any water issues? Have you ever had any water issues? She said, no, never. We're bone dry. And apparently Mr. Pigeon's water issues started right from the beginning when his basement had issues. And this is prior to us doing the berm. So I'm not sure where the berm is a problem per se, but it's just aesthetic. It's not stopping anything, or it's been determined that it's not a barrier to stop water.
Well, and in my opinion, it probably does divert water, but again, getting back to the issue at hand, it has nothing to do with the house being 3 feet higher than it should be. And I don't think the berm, the house being higher, in any way is related to the berm. The berm, as you said, was done for aesthetic reasons, and that's something as a property owner, you're certainly entitled to have. But I just thought it may be contributing to the issue, the water running down. But getting back to the plan shown, even if that berm remains, I guess, that water, if it does go down and cross at the corner of 37, 38, and 50, it would be picked up with this system as proposed and eventually conveyed down to the catch basin. Greg, you want to chime in? I know Lance had some thoughts on it. Do you have any personal thoughts?
Yeah, looking at it, I mean, Lance kind of filled me in. To me, looking at the picture and then looking at the grading, my personal opinion is I don't think the berm is necessarily a contributing factor in any of the real, what I see could be drainage issues. I do think what they're proposing on lot 50 appears to address significantly some drainage issues for that guy's lot. So, yeah, that would be my opinion at this point in time. Originally, I was, Lance had talked to me, and we thought that the berm would be a significant potential issue, but after hearing the property owners and then looking at this a little more detail, I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Okay. Any other board members want to provide input? Well,
Ryan.
Hello?
Hi there, this is Ryan Stachak.
Hello, Ryan again.
Hey.
Ryan too.
I'd love to get this thing moving forward.
Amen.
Casciano's today. And I think that if Mr. Pigeon's happy, if the neighbors in lot 50 are happy, if BMEs, they seem to be happy, if everybody's happy, including Mr. Hoteling representing our engineering firm tonight, and and if Chris Nadler's happy, and if Eric's happy, everyone's happy, and I'm willing to make a motion on this.
I got a question.
Bob.
Yeah, I got a question, and I think, James, I think you can answer it pretty quickly. I see the drainage going toward 51. There's no chance for all that drainage to end up in 51's backyard? Because all the...
There's a catch basin there.
Yeah, there's a catch basin. I just want to make sure that it's big enough to handle, because it's going down right into that area.
Yeah, like I said, this drainage pattern is identical to the original design for the subdivision. We really haven't changed drainage areas or sizings or contributing areas to any of the catch basins with this. If you go back to the original plan, you can see right in the back of this lot, there is a high point in the middle of 50 where the drainage splits in both directions. So we're really not changing anything from how the storm sewers were sized and designed for the subdivision.
So what you're saying is the drainage is going to be caught in the basin, not get into 51.
No, it will make it into that catch basin again. And you can see in the back of 51, because we did do a little bit of survey over there, they also have kind of a high point in the back of their lot where drainage splits east and west.
Yep. I just wanted
Okay.
to make that point.
Following up on Ryan's thought, again, the only stakeholder in this thing that hasn't chimed in are the pigeons, but assuming we go ahead and approve the amendment, it'll be up to the Gerbers to work with Mr. Pigeon to go onto his property to do this grading and in accordance with the plan. And if that's the case, that's on them. And all we're going to require is that it be done in accordance to the plan that they submitted and it's being considered tonight. So that being said, it sounded like Ryan, you wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, actually, before, I just had one comment. This is Mr. Cassiano.
Yes.
Regarding, if you could go back to the plan that James had up, the map. I was just curious as to, it looks like all of the work is occurring on lot 50 to flatten that out. And was just curious how close to the property line, the back of our lot there, that swale kind of comes up.
So you can, Tony, you can see there's a limits of disturbance on the drawing. That's the approximately area that will be disturbing. So you're really not going to see any disturbance on your lot with these improvements. There's not a need to do that.
So there won't be a swale per se going from literally the berm to his property, like there won't be an indent, like where the berm might fall into it?
It'll just
No.
be a slight slope down.
Slight,
Yeah, you're going to have about a 2 to 3 foot drop over, 10 feet, but it'll be on Mr. Pigeon's property.
Okay.
Your lot lines are going to stay as is. Obviously, if there's future issues with, the little bit of berm in the rear for some reason, if something new occurs, you could look to lower that a little bit and provide a little bit more positive drainage. But
Yeah, actually, the way that berm is there, it tapers down from lot 37 down towards lot 39, and it's actually, there isn't one.
yeah, the back berm almost, it comes down at a slope where it almost meets his property line, the level of his property line, literally. If I walk up to that, I can walk straight over to his property from the berm.
Yep.
Without going down. So it's it's right at the property line, meant to be sort of like a fence, but not. So our concern is, because it's so close to that property line, will the berm start to recede into the swale?
We're not gonna have any, like, what I think what we're trying to figure out is there any erosion or whatever could happen from the dirt that's on that berm now and then start falling down
Yeah.
into the other side of the
How
property.
close are we? Like,
Folks,
we don't
according-
need any more problems with Mr. Pigeon.
no, we're not creating any steep slopes here. So, and I know the Gervers can speak to this. As once they grade this, they will be stabilizing it pretty much and
Okay.
seeding it immediately, which will prevent any erosion. We're really looking to avoid doing things like 2-to-1 slopes, but we don't have that situation out here. So this is
Okay.
a mowable area for Mr. Pigeon, and
Yep.
anything you're
Okay.
driving a mower on, you're typically not going to have erosion issues unless you're in like extremely sandy soils.
Well, we've, seen some things we don't want to see in the backyard, and there may be a possibility we would like to put a fence up at some point. So I just want to make sure that that's a stable area to do so if it comes to that point.
In 10 years, your berm and trees will cover it all up. You'll never see it.
Well, I'd like to think so. Unfortunately, I didn't continue all arborvitaes. I did black-eyed Susans.
Oh, okay. A little wildflower. All right, let's move on, folks. Any other
Okay.
questions, Cindy, Tony? You're good. I should open it up, seeing we have so many participants on the call. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak specifically on this this application? If not, let me go back to you, Ryan, and solicit a motion.
Yeah, I guess, just one, John, if we can hook up when you guys come out to talk about fixing some of the low-lying areas that
on
we
our
have
property.
already, that would be great. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about now, but if we could talk when you come out, that'd be great.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
All right, thanks.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hotalian, do you give the okie dokie on this?
I definitely give the okie dokie, but we have to strike number 5.
About removing the berm?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay, but it says as per the originally approved plans. What does that mean?
The plans are being amended, so
Okay,
what's originally isn't too important.
okay.
So this will be kind of what you're approving. I would just say, I don't think that it has to be a condition, but this kind of revised grading should also be shown on like this. So it should kind of be incorporated in this because this is the amended plat that you guys are approving. Does that make sense, James?
Sure. We can certainly look to get you an updated proposed plan that incorporates more of the actual conditions. I don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Chuck, but I just want to
No,
make sure.
that's all right. No, it's good to question. And Greg, thanks for bringing it to our attention. I guess we did discuss that the berm could stay.
I think there's a couple berms, but so I just want to make sure that all the liability, we're not passing something that is going to come back and haunt us, or the Cascianos, or BME. We're gonna pass this, and we're going to get this. This is okay, right? We're good to go. Engineering, it's all good. Cascianos are happy. BME's happy. Everyone's satisfied, right?
Yes,
We're
the process.
happy-
The
We're
mo-
happy if our berm stays. And we're happy to get our C of O. That's it.
Let's make a motion to approve CPN 20-004, the amended final subdivision plat approval for lot 38, the at 5157 Overlook Lane with 4 conditions as presented. Is that correct?
Wait a minute, is it lot 38 grading plan or is it lot 50?
Well, it's lot 38 that's being revised because lot 38 was the one that was built too high as far as the structure.
There's kind of 50 is going to be revised, 49 slightly. So let's just call it the section 6 grading plan or whatever, because we're kind of amending all these.
Yeah, because 50 is really being amended.
Okay, I'm just reading the, or we could just add a 5th condition onto there that says that includes grading to lot 50 and lot 37 and 40.
Something, because right now it just says 38 is being graded.
Okay, so Eric, I will word the condition to exactly what Eric's going to say right now.
Which condition are we talking about?
My motion. I'm sorry, my motion.
Okay, so it should just say, so BME Old Brookside subdivision section 6 amended final subdivision plan. Just remove lot 38, so it just says grading plan.
Still CPN 20004. It doesn't, right? So that's
Right. It
with
doesn't
4
change.
conditions. We're striking the 5th.
Okay, I will second that motion. Any further discussion? The only question I had is how soon does this have to be done? Is there any time constraint? I know the issue came to us from the Code Enforcement Department because it was a variance from the approved plan. We're in the process of approving a revision of that plan, so we will go back to Code Enforcement, and it'll be up to Code Enforcement, I guess, to assure compliance with what we approved this evening. Is that right, Eric?
That's right.
Okay. All right. I got a motion and a second. I was the seconder, John, and I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Tony, and we'll miss seeing you at our meetings.
Yeah,
I hope it's few and far between.
Okay.
For this
just
whole,
one question, in terms of the permanent C of O, that'll come after code enforcement ensures that work has been done, and then we would get the.
Yep. Check with
Yeah,
Chris
work through
Jensen.
us with that. Yeah, myself and Chris Jensen.
Who is that speaking? I'm sorry.
That was
Eric
Eric.
Cooper, the town.
Eric? Okay.
So it's out of our hands. It's back in the staff's ballpark, and they can certainly work it out. And assuming that it's built as we approved it and it works, you're done with us. So we're gonna miss you. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice
All right.
seeing you. Thank you for everything you've done.
And thank you, Gerbers et al.
Yep,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Pleasure
night,
having you
everyone.
with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Night.
Okay, moving over to
Can,
the, yes, Eric.
Can we take a very brief break? I need to step out for just a minute.
Sure.
Thank you. Hold on one second.
Can you put on elevator music? I'm taking a survey. Have people been having problems with electric outages and cable outages?
Yes.
Wow.
Indeed.
I live on Foster Road, and my power has been on and off 3 times in the last 36 hours. Cable's been on and off, I guess, now 3 times also. So there's a gremlin in the system somewhere, and I hope the RG&E and Spectrum can find it.
How about gypsy moth? Who's got gypsy moth at their house?
Terrible.
I saw one caterpillar. You're right, after you showed it to us last time, right?
Amanda, it's something else, isn't it?
Billions.
Billions. I don't know if everyone understands.
Amanda, they came from Ryan's house, the ones you have.
Yeah, I bet.
He chased them off.
It's the whole Bristol Hills down here, and sometimes in Canandaigua can't see any. I'm looking at 3, 4, 5 oak trees completely.
Covered.
All the leaves are gone since the last meeting. They're eating
Wow.
pine. They're eating my pines. They're defoliating pines and spruces.
Yep.
It's unreal what's happening up here.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm back. Sorry, guys.
We got plague and pestilence in our land. Okay, we're going to move on.
Yep.
Okay, the next application is CPN 20022, Venezia Associates representing Richard Cahill and Kelly Vestal, who own property at 3312 Fallbrook. They're seeking a single-stage site plan approval to tear down and rebuild a new single-family home within the RLD. And Anthony is here, I know. So Anthony, you want to tell us what has transpired? I know it was here, then it went away, it went to ZBA, it's back to us.
Yep. So Chuck, the way that we're going to do it, we're going to have Pete Heinzelman, the architect, kind of go through the house design, and then we're going to have Sue go through the landscape design, and then I'm going to follow up with any questions regarding drainage and site design. So Pete, if you're there, go ahead.
Right. Now, good evening, everyone. This is Pete Heinzelman, architect for the project. We also have Rick Quell and Kelly Vestal, the homeowners, on the line, along with Sue Steele, our landscape architect, and Anthony Venezia, who's doing site plan and grading. So kind of just want to, take you through what we're proposing, but also kind of why we're proposing what we're proposing. We have been working on this, doing a few variety of iterations throughout the process. So I know, Bob, you had some initial questions that you had sent to Eric. Eric had sent those to us before the meeting, so I appreciate that, Bob. We were going to try to answer all of those during this presentation. If we don't get to any, obviously let us know if you want to have further discussion with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so kind of what we're looking at is actually a lakeside facade of what our proposed project is going to be. Just architecturally speaking, we're really looking to do kind of a modern shingle style lake home for Rick and Kelly. This is on 3312 Fallbrook Park. If you could, Eric, please click to the next slide. So I kind of want to go over, this is a raise and rebuild project. And what we're looking at right now is actually the existing site conditions for the home that is currently up there. And I want to just go over a few things because it is a very non-conforming piece of property as it sits. And one of our main goals for this project was to come into conformity and develop a home that Rick and Kelly could use as their primary residence as they are moving back into the neighborhood from Chicago, actually. So the house, one major thing is the house on the northern property line is actually -1 feet over the property line. Number two, we are 5.7 feet from the road right of way. We are a smaller lot than usual, as you know, with all Fallbrook pieces of property. Our building coverage existing is 32.9%, and our lot coverage with the pool and everything is 58.7%. So there are quite a few non-conforming entities to this project. Now, next slide, please, Eric. Now, I want to kind of go back through the history. Rick and Kelly actually bought this home with the idea of renovating the interior spaces and really just kind of making what was there work for them, make it more livable for them as a primary residence, and try to keep the property as is. As we got into the project, even just a little bit, you can see from some of the photos, there was no foundation, really. The foundation was falling apart, and basically subject to structure, it would have been pretty much unfeasible to redevelop this project in any kind of safe or economical way, which is why we decided to venture into the raise and rebuild category for this property. Eric, if you don't mind clicking over to the next one, please. So with kind of just going with our design, kind of considerations of what we are developing with this house, why we developed it the way we did, is that, A, this is going to be a primary residence for both Rick and Kelly. They have a lot of visiting family and friends. And unfortunately, nobody is getting younger. So aging in place design details were one of the driving factors for the main floor living. And just touch on aging in place, as I'm sure most of you understand what that is, but it's a way that as we get older, we can function properly in the house. All our amenities are on the main level. We're working with wider doorways, wider hallways, minimal steps on the interior and the exterior, main level living, like I explained. We have a main level bedroom, wheelchair clearances, and the ability to have an elevator. And we also developed an attached 2-car garage for this house so that we could get cars off of the road and allow for more parking in the driveway of this project rather than just on the road or across the street. So it kind of cleans up our neighborhood aesthetic. And then obviously we want to create a nice and continuous connectivity to the lake and to the Fallbrook Road and golf course on the other side. Next slide, please, Eric. So what we're looking at now is actually what we're proposing for our site. Like I said, we were proposing a single-family residence, 2 stories, and want to just kind of show you the yellow line is what the existing house is. It's not showing the pool or any of the existing decks. That is just showing the exterior walls. But what we are doing is we're moving the house south off of the northern property to increase our side yard setback. We are moving the house to the west off of our roadside property line, increasing our roadside setback. We are decreasing our building coverage to 32.4% from where it was, and we are decreasing our overall lot coverage to 52.4%. So I think, many of the things that were not conforming, we are trying to really touch upon and solve for within this design and within the design parameters. You will see on this plan, we do have a spa in the lakeside yard. That is an existing nonconformity in terms of where the pool was. Sue Steele will go into a little further conversation in terms of what we are doing to design that and hide that from the lakeside view. We'll also see is where we positioned our house, we really wanted to take into account to the neighbors, both to the south and to the north, and line up the houses in order to not block anybody's view or step on anybody's toes that way, while still providing ample room on the driveway side for parking, reversing out, and cleanliness on that. Eric, if you could, next slide. So this is kind of a existing to proposed site conditions, just kind of explaining what we're doing. It was improved site development. We're improving our stormwater management, as there really was zero stormwater management on this. Again, Anthony will talk a little bit further into that. We believe we're improving the house positioning on the site in general. We are gaining a lot more green space and a lot more natural vegetation, and we believe we're improving the general character of development in the Fallbrook neighborhood. Next slide, please, Eric. So this is kind of going back. We did take this in front of the ZBA and what we believe had a very constructive and positive conversation with them. At first, we were looking for a little bit bigger of a building, which brought us over the existing nonconformity percentage. And we felt like we had a great conversation with them, and we went back to the drawing board again and decided to decrease our overall building coverage, compromised on a few items the homeowners did, but we were able to reduce that to get it under what the existing building coverage is. That further decreased our lot coverage. We have been in contact with the neighbors to the north, to the south, and several neighbors on the street in general. General feeling, I think, is that most people are positive with this change. We increased our roadside distance, and just as a note, when we did apply for our ZBA, the county did suggest approval of our initial design. So they did understand where we were headed and did feel that what we were doing was a benefit to the neighborhood and to this property and to the lake region in general. Next slide, please, Eric. Now these are just some elevations to show you kind of the character of where we're going. This is the roadside elevation. Next slide, please, Eric. And then another elevation from the lakeside. And from here, I'm going to pass it on to Sue Steele, who can explain more of shoreline guidelines and our landscape intentions in her plan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here tonight. As Pete said, I'm going to walk you through the site design. I'll touch, Bob, we received your comments. I'll touch on some of the stormwater comments, but I will leave Anthony, I'll leave most of the technical stuff to Anthony because they were primarily leading that effort in conjunction with the landscape design and site design. So just to walk you through some of the, and Pete gave a great explanation of the improvements that we're making to this site with the reduction of lot coverage, increase of plant material. We have a wonderful homeowner that's interested in planting design in gardens and improving aesthetics. We've had a lot of fun starting to think about the plant material that we can incorporate and really start to buffer a lot of the structures, walls, and hardscape from the shoreline. So I'll walk you through the design and share how we've responded to the shoreline development guidelines and what these improvements are. So starting on Fallbrook at the front of the house, not much of a significant change in the landscape, being that there will be a driveway, there will be a walkway and plantings at the foundation of the house. The driveway will be a pervious paver material or asphalt that will allow water to infiltrate and be collected through dry wells as part of the stormwater system. So everything is pitched in that front yard to collect in a dry well system. As you travel to the rear of the property, there is
So real quick, you have a Japanese maple you're relocating in the front yard before you move?
Thank you. Our goal is to, if successful, transplant. It's a significant Japanese maple that is in the front yard that is quite stunning, a nice specimen. And our goal is to transplant and move that. a lot of factors that go into that being successful. So that's the intent. If not, we will replace with a specimen Japanese maple. Yes, thank you.
And that's in that walk area where the, between the walkway and the driveway, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right,
Very
let's,
close, very close to the location. If you're familiar with the site, very close. We're moving it about, right now it would be just a couple feet in the driveway. So unfortunately, we just couldn't get the geometries to work to keep it in place and know that it would survive. So we're just having to move it a few feet.
okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. But either way, we will have an ornamental tree there, Japanese maple, that will help reestablish that great, it's a beautiful tree and that feature at the front there. In the rear, there's a 3-season room off the center rear of the home. There is a significant grade change, about 4 feet from the finished floor of the house down to the dock elevation. So there are a series of steps, one step off the 3-season room, and then a series of steps and terrace walls to allow access to a walkway that would then provide access to the dock. We could have handled it with a ramped walkway and a series of steps in multiple locations, but due to the age in place guidelines, it's really safer to have steps combined in one area with a handrail than multiple series of steps or steep ramps in the rear yard. So that's the basis of design in that location. With the addition of walls, obviously comes consideration for the shoreline development guidelines, and we're planning plant material that would be in front of those walls, looking at something that would be substantial to cover their low walls, 3-foot walls, I believe. So looking at some shrub plant material right now, we're showing hydrangeas. The exact species might adjust, but something that will screen those walls. As Pete mentioned, there is a spa, and as you descend to the bottom steps there, to your right would be the north there. There is a spa that would be above grade, so there would be a wall. From the shoreline, it would look as a consistent wall screened with vegetation. It would just protrude out to you the way that the spa is arranged, so not visible from the lake. This is a small spa, not a pool. The walkway, again, slightly pitched because we are trying to traverse and get down to the elevation of the break wall and dock. An interesting situation, this dock is built at an elevation that is above the break wall. So we do have then a step up to access the dock, and again, handrails to make that connection. We are not interested in making modifications to the dock at this time. The small patio that seats about 4, small gathering patio lakeside, is separated from the break wall with some plantings. And those plantings are intended to be plants that will spill over the break wall and further veil the structure from the lake side. We do have plantings along both property lines, north and south. An ornamental tree that will be another specimen tree on access with the master bedroom and associated with the spa and patio feature as to add a little bit additional coverage in the rear yard. We have worked, and I'd like to, Pete mentioned we've talked to the neighbors. We have worked with the neighbors to the north, and in particular, I met with their landscape architect to coordinate the landscape plan that's shown today. There are improvements planned for the north of the property line, and in our conversations, we've developed a plan that includes shade trees and not duplicating the efforts along the property line. So the north neighbor will have a shade tree that's replacing one that will be lost through their improvements, and we're incorporating an understory tree that will complement that landscape. We have also coordinated with them in some of the other requests that they had in the screening along that property line. Specifically at the spa, we have evergreen trees that will provide some privacy, and we have really shifted and located those to be only at the spa location and not extend any further along the property line to respect the views and visual access along the lake for that property owner. So I just wanted to note that landscape has been reviewed and coordinated with the neighbor, and it's been a great coordination effort between myself and their landscape architect. And we'll continue to meet as the project moves forward to make sure all the species do actually work well together. Let's see. So then plantings along the shoreline I talked about, and then just some gardens along the property line to really soften and make the views from both the shoreline into the home, and then also from the homeowner's perspective out to the lake a little bit more pleasing and softer. I think I've covered most. I just want to look, Bob, at some of your comments. You had a comment about the patio and its relationship to the break wall and runoff. The patio is sloped to pitch back into the planting beds. It is not pitched and not connected to the break wall. We are not diverting any stormwater into the lake. That we are pitching back and collecting through dry wells, and Anthony can talk more about that. And that system will allow water to infiltrate.
So can you talk about the walkway? You said it was sloped right to the lake. Is there any chance to get any kind of drainage prior to it heading the lake? Because it looks like it's a direct straight shot.
Yeah, so it's misleading, and I can see what it pitches to the break wall, but you step up to the dock and it will have a cross slope on it, so that drainage area, which is limited to the patio, will drain into the lawn area. It will not be running off. It's a small drainage area, the walkway there, and it'll drain into the lawn and not over the break wall into the lake.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the walkway. This is Ryan. Can the walkway be a permeable paving system too, or no?
We can look at those options. I think from a maintenance standpoint, we may want to, I don't know. We can certainly explore those options if required. My concern from an accessibility standpoint is permeable pavers do require some thicker joints and can long-term in a driveway situation where vehicular traffic, it's not as concerning, but in a walkway that's a little bit more intimate and you might be walking with heeled shoes or different, it may not be appropriate for this particular homeowner. I wouldn't want to agree with that without a conversation.
I'm just thinking about what Bob was saying. Well, it's always a nice landscaping plan, Sue.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, it's really is. The honey locust is the only real tree that's being planted. Is that right?
Not a honey locust. The plan that you have before you shows just the addition of a dogwood, and that is the canopy is just lakeside of the spa. We did have a tree planned, a shade tree along the break wall. However, in correspondence with the landscape architect, they were planting a shade tree on their property, and it wouldn't make sense to have two large shade trees planted right next to each other. So we decided it made most sense to keep our understory tree ornamental below the canopy of the larger shade tree that they're planting.
So with the shoreline guidelines, like in the landscape plan, do you feel like the vegetation along the 3-season room and around the steps is going to shield and kind of, in your opinion, do you think it satisfies the shoreline guidelines and the intent and the?
I do, and you know what I'll do? I think we've walked through the landscape. Eric, if you can go to the next slide, I have some quick sketches that just start to show this improvement, right? So to your left, you're seeing the complexity of the landscape that's there today. All of the various steps and structures and patios and pavements and walls, and very limited plantings, except for along the, their property lines on the north and south. And we look to the right, and we're starting to see a community of plants and a landscape that starts to have a little bit more variety and interest, both along the shoreline and along the property line where we have room in front of the spa. The steps you will see. We can't plant in front of the steps. And the access to the boardwalk is important visually and from an accessibility standpoint, and limiting our pavement and coverage. So with a straight walk and those steps, it will be visible, but I feel we're doing a very good job at screening the home and the other structural improvements hardscapes that you would see from the lake.
I would agree, according to, especially with this rendering. I think it looks nice in the theme.
And the rendering doesn't account for the 2 shade trees on other properties either side too. That would certainly add to it. Mhm.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the photo on the bottom right, where you see blue sky in the top left corner, that would be a big shade tree.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to show that, and it would be deceiving in our rendering because it's not something that's proposed as part of our project.
Oh, you're an honest gal. Okay.
I know that because of the stairs there, if for any reason the house has to be lowered, do you think that we can kind of continue to keep this plan even if the house was to be lowered or changed?
If the house was lowered, can you explain?
There's those 3 steps, and it might be a concern with the railing. And if for any reason, if you're going to raise the house, and is there going to be a full basement underneath, or just going to put a crawl space in, Anthony?
Pete, I believe there's just a crawl space. You want to chime in?
There's just a crawl space right now. We're trying, we can't really lower the house that much. We're trying to keep the grade up, similar to the house, the first floor elevation, similar house to the north. Plus we got to stay, a little bit out of the floodplain per town code. So that's kind of where the height has to be. Can't really lower it too much without having some other grading issues. So that kind of set our first floor.
That was another reason, Ryan, that the steps are really kept up at the house. We needed to keep grade down within the floodplain because the greater, a good portion of the lakeside lawn is in the floodplain, and we needed to respect that and not fill in those areas. And I guess, Bob, to your point, that is why everything will be kind of pitching into the yard and into the landscape, and we'll be using plant material and soils that can accommodate that and actually thrive in that situation.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure. And it seems like from your plan and Anthony's plan, it seems like all the storm runoff is going to be contained on the property.
Yeah, and this is probably a really good point. Unless there's questions about the landscape, we can switch over and have Anthony cover the stormwater part.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, the house that's currently there, it's typical for an older home on Fallbrook, before a lot of the regulations that we have to work with today, to not really have any stormwater management practices implied in when they built it. Most of it's splash blocks, or it's going right into an underground system that directly discharges in the lake. Which we try to prevent anything like that from happening in these sensitive areas. So what we're proposing to use is on the east side, we're going to be using a porous pavement driveway. So any kind of water that flows off of Fallbrook or flows directly onto that pavement will get absorbed by that pavement, and it'll be contained to an extent during an event. There will be some overflow and some access, so the water will be able to exit that system if necessary, if it becomes overwhelmed. That water will flow to the south and then to the west through a series of perforated pipes. There's an 18-inch pipe that's going to be on that east-west line on the south side that'll be surrounded in stone, so it'll give that water some sort of ability to permeate back into the soil before it does reach the lake. There will be an overflow dry well at the southwest corner of this system. So if there is an event that overwhelms the system, which would be a pretty extensive event, instead of a direct discharge, water will kind of gently flow up and flow out, and then it'll sheet flow to the lake. A couple other things other than drainage in this site is with the grade at the lake, we're kind of pulling back some of that grade. You can see that 691 contour. We're actually going to be doing a little bit of grading at the lake to pull those contours back, so we are not displacing any floodwaters during this project. We're actually giving back some flood maintenance areas. So we're actually cutting back, and we're not filling in the floodplain. We're actually bringing that floodplain a little bit closer back in that 691 contour to kind of make sure we're not displacing any of our floodwaters onto other properties in other areas. So that's typical of what we want to do with the storm water system. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, Anthony, would it be fair to say that all the sediment from the roof and the downspouts would be contained in your system in the overflow dry wells or in underneath the driveway or?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, because the exit of this system would be an overflow dry well, that sediment, you know, it would take quite an event to actually get any kind of, you know, roof sediment up and out of that dry well. So.
Right, that's what we're always been wondering. And
it definitely would help.
Yeah, and would there be any screening on the gutters themselves or just open?
The gutters go right into this system. So the gutters would be going directly into the system.
Right, no, on top of the gutter, would there be a screen?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, I just was trying to figure out if it'd all be contained inside your well there. But it seems like a really good plan that all your stormwater is going to stay on the property, pretty much.
Yes. I mean, there is some sheet flow from areas on the west side of the house that could, you know, potentially, but that would be sheet flow that's falling on grass or landscaped areas. And like Sue was saying, that proposed walkway and patio, any water that falls directly on that, nothing is flowing across it, will be pitched into the lawn area to the north or the south. And it won't be a significant amount of water that would cause any kind of issues to the lake. Most of it would sheet flow directly into the lawn areas and then get absorbed by the lawn areas and filtered out that way.
So you said also it's going to be a porous pavement. I saw on the plans it was going to be a paver, and then Sue mentioned possibly asphalt. So is it a paver?
It's going to be a porous pavement driveway, so it's an asphalt. We have gone over with the clients about the maintenance, but that's currently what it is. It's that will be used. We've used it a couple times. We actually did it on a couple houses down for the Vios family, and it was installed. And we went out there the other day, and I dumped a bunch of water on it, and it was instantly absorbed. It's a pretty cool system.
Well, it'd be great to see that. Thanks.
I misspoke, Robert. I misspoke on that.
No problem. I was listening to you.
It's a wonderful system until the owner hires somebody to come and seal coat it.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can make sure, I would let's make sure, maybe this is a condition, that if at any point in time that driveway is seal coated for any reason, that it will completely be removed and redone. Is that fair, Anthony?
I could talk with the clients, but yeah, I believe that's fair because that's what the system is meant to do. And there are certain ways to maintain it that, you know, you don't need to seal coat it, and
you can't.
And you can't. Well, there are ways to maintain it, but it's a special material. It's not a typical asphalt seal coat sealing over, because yes, it'll be rendered useless, and the amount of money that it takes to do this will be for naught. So
well, I guess I'm trying to, you know, we're already above lot coverage significantly, and there's some issues that the neighbors are talking about. If we can just ensure that driveway needs to be porous into perpetuity, I think that would help a little bit with the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree.
It needs to follow the site plan. So if the site plan's not followed, but if we can put, I don't know, is that necessary, Eric and Chuck, do you think?
No, the owners, Kelly and Rich, are on the call here or in the meeting. I think they're certainly aware of what we're talking about here, and I don't see it as a reason to have it as a condition. They should realize that if they would do anything to the detriment of the porosity of that driveway, that it could affect them negatively in terms of water coming toward the garage or something like that, or having ponding water that they necessarily don't want to have, that they'd have to walk through to get to their car. So again, Rich and Kelly, you're on the call. You hear what we're saying. So
I actually just had a quick side conversation with Rick and Kelly, and they completely understand what you're saying. I also wanted to kind of do a sidebar. as I know, with homes and how we're talking about aging in place and those types of things, maintenance on the exterior is obviously something that we want to make sure is sustained, including the driveway. And just, kind of fair warning from Kelly and Rick, they're very neat, orderly people. Even with the house that they have now that we are proposing to tear down, they already have landscaping and maintenance staff that continues to clean that property up, make sure it's looking as good as it can be, and they will continue to do that both winter and summer throughout the project. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that if anybody had a question with that part.
But following up on Ryan's concern, was it stated what the proposed walkway materials would be?
We haven't made a material selection yet on the walkway.
Is it going to have some sort of porosity, or I know we talked about pavers in the back, but
The front walkway.
the front walkway,
There's
all the
some
walkways.
Yeah, so there is some existing material on site, some natural bluestone. So we're considering salvaging and reusing that as opposed to introducing new material. And we can set that in a number of ways. One is with wide joints that would allow it to be impervious. These are narrow walkways with not a big drainage area. So my personal recommendation would be to not focus on them being pervious systems because of the small drainage area associated. When you look at a driveway, there's much more volume that you're carrying, and it's much bigger return on the investment for the pervious system. The walkways can easily sheet to a lawn area or planting beds and not have a big impact on the stormwater capacity of the site. So
So if it's not slate, what's it going to be? So
the bluestone that's on site would be our preference to reuse, depending on how much is actually salvageable. We'll continue that or look at other concrete paver systems.
I'm sorry, but sometimes we get caught up in the lingo of pervious and impervious. And I recognize that the materials on top are what people are really, that's what we see, we walk on, we feel that. But when we look at a pervious system, I'm actually more concerned with the sub-base material underneath that and the type of material that we're going to use that's underneath that material. And if it's washed crusher, washed limestone with number 3s or 2s that allow for the system to be compacted and a high strength, but it still allows water to get in there if it's enclosed within some driveway fabric. So, I mean, that's the spirit I think that I'm always thinking about, not necessarily concerned with the top layer, but more the system itself.
Yeah.
And, like we could use bluestone. You could put bluestone on top of,
clay. Yeah.
Clean crusher, washed stone. And that system would still allow for some.
Correct. There's always in your compacted base associated with any pavement system, you will get some water. Are we designing this paving system to have a base that is designed to have volume capacity? Are we trying to store water in the base of this pavement system? No, that's not for the walkways. We're not looking at doing that right now. I don't know if I would recommend it because in order to store for these walkways, we'd have to do a much deeper base and a very different system that I don't know that it would provide the storage. I don't know if it makes sense for the limited storage that we would be getting. The system is designed in those paving profiles. Yes, you have your storage, but the water has to come in between the joints of the stone and material. It's not coming in from the sides necessarily. And I don't know that I would put a system that would allow water to infiltrate and then potentially cause heaving and other situations long-term seasonally. It's not traditional and it's not something that I would want to explore.
Okay, to get off this, it's not going to be concrete. It's not going to be blacktop. Could we say, as long as it's somehow neutral in terms of its runoff effect, whether would that be something that we could agree upon?
It'll be some sort of unit paver that will
So-
be aesthetically
Because
appropriate.
blacktop concrete would be a net increase in runoff as a result, would add to the runoff. So I think as long as it's some sort of material it would be neutral as far as increasing runoff, it'd be a net zero effect.
Yeah, it will be a paver of some sort, whether it be a natural stone or concrete unit with joints.
Okay, I think the plan should reflect that. So Anthony, if you could put that on there, and if we could put that as a condition, that would be appreciated.
You wanted to say that it's a paver material?
I think Sue said what she had
Well,
proposed.
it's and Anthony, it's shown on our landscape plan, and I can call it out on that, or you can update your plan to show unit pavers.
That works for me.
Anyone else from the board have questions specific to the plan, to Sue, to Pete, to Anthony? I know there were some emails from neighbors. Some of them might be in the meeting. Let me open it up to the audience. If someone would like to speak regarding this application, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. I'll have to go to participants.
Like Greg Scholand has his hand raised.
Okay, Greg, you're up.
You got to unmute yourself, Greg.
And you're muted, yeah. There you go.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. My name's Greg Scholand. I'm a land use attorney at Hardesty, Creston, Emery, and I'm here on behalf of the neighbor to the north at 3310 Fallbrook Park, Gary and Laura Hasley. And first, just want to be clear that the Hasleys do not oppose this application. This is not a neighbor trying to stop progress or trying to tell another neighbor what to do with their property. And like the landscape architect mentioned, they've actually appreciated the cooperation on the landscape aspects of this. And that really has been a good example of two neighbors working together to come up with a plan that really works. The Hasleys really just have a couple of specific concerns with the current design that they just want to make sure sort of get a hard look from the planning board, because we see them as pretty serious sort of safety and well-being issues. And the first one is fire safety. There was a letter in the project review plans from the fire department, and specifically the fire chief for Canandaigua, that raised some pretty serious concerns about tactical ability to move equipment and emergency responders if there was to be a fire at either of the two properties on the north or south side of the northern property line of this site. You specifically noted tactical concerns for water supply, exterior hose line operations, ladder rescue operations, when there's such a small side setback for the proposed new build. The ordinary setback requirement in the zoning district would be 8 feet from the side lot line. This one, while it is improving on the existing nonconformity, it's still less than half of what the zoning code requires for an ordinary new build in this zone. So the concern that the fire chief raised is really just that there wouldn't be enough room to move material and equipment and emergency responders if there was to be a fire. So there were several comments in that letter talking about the impact on fire flow and availability of water supply because of the minimal setback distance and the inability to use ground extension ladders for rescue activities and to maneuver things, how it would be constricted. So we really just wanted to raise that as a very serious concern. In particular, this is a reputable builder, reputable architect. This home is going to be standing for possibly 100 years or more once it's built. So this really is the one chance to improve on that safety issue. This is the one chance when the home is being demolished and the new one being constructed. So just wanted to make sure that that issue sort of got some serious attention during the plan review. The second one is just the issues that arise when you have two homes in such close proximity. With a home that's proposed for construction within 3 feet of the property line, there's construction demolition issues. It's not clear from these plans where material would be staged, where construction equipment would be located, and the limit of work that's shown on the plan that's on the screen now, it does not appear to account for demolition because it shows that there is a portion of the home being demolished that's across the property line, the little bump out there. So the Hasleys just have a concern about potential impacts to their property during the construction and demolition process. Aside from just the acts of removing the old home and constructing the new home, what's maintenance going to look like when there's such a small setback from the side property line? And when you have a home so close to the property line, it's difficult to do maintenance without sort of trespass issues potentially coming up. So just wanted to raise that as well, in addition to when it's such a small lot with such a small build going onto it. And again, they are improving the lot coverage and the building coverage, but both are still non-conforming under the zoning code. So there's just, by virtue of the size of the lot, a very limited amount of space for staging of construction materials, equipment, trucks, things like that. So there's also a concern about how that can affect traffic on Fallbrook Park. The final concern is really just the project timing. If this does go forward, the sort of traditional approach in this neighborhood is not to do any construction in the summer months. And with this, the timing of this application, depending on when it's approved, the Hasleys are just concerned about their ability to enjoy their property during the summer. And that's especially a concern when the construction and demolition would be so close to their property. So they would like to request, just respectfully, if construction could be delayed if the project is approved, just sort of as late as possible into the fall. We'd suggest a date of October 15th, but again, that's just a request on sort of a basis of trying to accommodate neighbors. I believe the neighbors, a couple of other neighbors in the same area have raised concerns about doing the construction in the summer. So that's really it. Again, they're not opposed to the project, and they've appreciated some cooperation to date on the landscaping. Just wanted to make sure that the planning board took a really serious look at those issues, because again, this is sort of the one chance to address what could be a really serious safety issue. And as one final point, I just want to note, I think that the applicant said that the county recommended approval of this project when it was referred to the county planning board. I believe that's actually not correct. What I have in the planning board notes is that it was originally recommended for denial, and then after the county planning board met, they revisited that decision and realized that this fell into one of the categories where they had made an administrative decision not to make a recommendation for either approval or denial based on the type of application that it was. So the county planning board did not recommend approval of this project, and yeah, there's the key language. And when they first looked at it, they actually did recommend denial, and it was for some of the same reasons that I've just discussed here about sort of the close proximity and potential for overdevelopment when you don't respect the setbacks in the zoning code. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to these concerns. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Are the Halseys, are they year-round, or are they vacationers on their property? Right.
They currently own another home on Fallbrook Park, and are, I don't know whether they're planning to be at Fallbrook Park all year, but they're not strictly vacationers. They've had property on Canandaigua Lake for years and spend about 4 to 5 months per year. And obviously the summer months are the prime time for them.
I was just thinking when they're going to be away, that it would be certainly more convenient to do the demolition when they're not there. Okay. And that, yeah, the few other neighbors brought the issue up about the, I guess, the unofficial thought out there is that you don't build it during the summertime. Is that subject to any HOA or any type of legal document regarding folks who own property? And it's not up to the planning board to enforce it either. It was just a question I had.
Is that a
Only
question to
care.
me?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's any HOA requirement or any specific language that states that construction will not occur during the summer months on Fallbrook.
Yeah, there is not an HOA that sort of sets rules on this that are mandatory. It's basically, to my understanding, just sort of been a tradition of neighbors kind of respecting each
Okay.
other's use of the lakefront property.
Okay. All right. Anybody from the board want to ask any questions regarding what Greg just brought to our attention? Eric, you're the fireman in the group. Regarding the issues that the fire chief brought up, I don't know if it's in the purview of the planning board. It's certainly a concern that buildings being close to each other may make it a little more difficult. I think, Sue, in your presentation, that both the areas north and south of the new building will be lawn area, so there's no landscaping, and I was careful to look at that when you were showing us that plan. So there should be no vegetation preventing access to either side yard.
Are there
Yeah,
many windows on that side, Chuck?
You have to
Yeah, if I could, I could bring a little light to some of this. First and foremost, what we're talking about construction dates is this was pretty much already decided upon that we were not going to start until after Labor Day, which is more or less the time most people start construction on the lake. Labor Day seems to be, one of the end dates for people to start moving back into the city or back into their winter home, if you will. So the clients, the builder, everybody, we are scheduled to start after Labor Day already. And we had talked with many of the neighbors and discussed that already about doing that. And then we'll do it as fast as we can to not be building in too much of the summertime. And then in terms of the landscaping and kind of maintenance, the north side of this building, we're keeping as plain as possible in terms of one straight wall. There are some windows for ambient light to get in. Like you said, all it is lawn. Maintenance on that side will be, fairly non-existent in terms of what vegetation and kind of things of that we need to do. And then in terms of what the fire chief said, one of his points was, building to code. And we are building that wall as a firewall to code that is approved by the IRC and by the fire chief as one of his comments. So, we are trying to do everything per code and trying to make the best for the neighborhood, for the homeowners, and for basically Canandaigua Lake and the development in general with this.
Hey, Pete, quick question. Are there, or any of these windows, are they like bedrooms or anything, like to the chief's point about like rescuing anybody from those windows?
Right, no. So you see the 4 small windows, which would be on the right side of this elevation, those 4. Those would be high awning windows allowing ambient light and air to blow through, but no real visual in or out. Those are windows that would be on either side of the bed wall. The main windows that you'd be getting in terms of egress would actually be on the west side for the bedrooms that are located on this side of the house. So in terms of egressing anybody, which are those right there that Eric is showing, all egress in and out of this house would either be on the west side or on the east side of the house. So we feel pretty comfortable about that as well.
Can I jump in on that just really briefly on the fire chief's letter? He did mention fire code issues, and then it was a separate section of the letter where he says, moreover, there are some technical concerns. So this is, obviously there's a requirement for any new construction to comply with fire code requirements, but this was really in addition to the fire code compliance right there. Moreover, there are some technical concerns. And he goes on for a couple of paragraphs and concludes by saying, please work with the fire department and town of Canandaigua for a suitable solution. So again, given sort of just the potential severity of that safety issue and the permanence of the home once it's there, we think it would be appropriate for there to be sort of some additional exploration of this issue with the fire department, so that when they're specifically saying, please work with us on a suitable solution, that solution kind of is arrived at before the project moves forward.
Peter, you agree to that?
Yes, and I have talked with Chris Jensen about this as well, to see what he had to say in terms of what we were proposing. So I think, in terms of a solution, in terms of how they would manage, getting there and getting around, like we had discussed, in terms of ladders and things like that, they're not getting anybody out of that side of the building. We did that purposefully. But I'd be fine to talk with them more to discuss some of the other details that he would be thinking.
And to confirm that, please, if it's not already included in the findings, something to that effect, that the applicant will work with the fire department in terms of any issues the fire department may have concerns on. And the minutes certainly will reflect it also, because our secretary does a great job at transcribing these meetings. Anything else? Any other neighbors out there? Again, the emails, a couple of them had to do with the time of construction. There were a couple that were in favor of the project, 3334 and 3320. So we've got their input. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question, Chuck.
Sure,
So
Ryan.
I guess this is for you too, Eric. We often will discuss these side setbacks. Whose purview is it to enforce setbacks, Eric?
The towns in some instances. I mean, the setback is a local rule that we enforce. In this instance, it was a pre-existing nonconformity that they're improving on. So with our chapter on nonconforming uses, structures, it says if it doesn't expand on it, which this one doesn't, and it would be tough to, considering that's right on the property line. It doesn't expand on it. It doesn't need a variance. And if it reduces the degree of nonconformance, it shall be allowed. So this one does reduce the degree of nonconformance because it's pulling it away from what the existing is in the pre-existing nonconformity, and thus it shall be allowed.
So even if they were reducing that nonconformance by 3 inches, it will be allowed.
Theoretically, there's no clarification in the code.
So there is, we don't have, we can't, the planning board's hands are stuck. We can't, right? I'm trying to talk about this so that.
I'm not sure that that's the case. I mean, let me just pull up the site plan regulations real quick.
It's a super valid point, right? Like, we have setbacks for reasons. The lot was purchased. We have tons of small lots. We have setbacks for reasons, especially for safety issues, for emergency services. It's a super valid point, and we often see that around the lake. I mean, it's a really good point, and it does warrant some conversation. But if we can't do anything, I don't know what we can do.
So
If I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Eric, first.
I was just going to say, the intent right here, so this is the intent section of the site plan rules, which you guys are enforcing right now. So your goal here is to ensure that new uses and developments are in conformance with the plans, and also the intent, or to ensure the proper arrangement minimizes negative impacts to the environment, neighboring properties, and the community. Generally speaking, it's also related to public safety and health as well, which this one does. And it's not already enforced, or not already addressed through the enforcement of the town bulk setback stuff. So even though I've enforced that, you guys, I believe, can take it upon yourself to review it further. And, Greg, you're certainly an expert in this as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then the planning board findings, when we make our decision, it's going to be based on these different things, which I'm sure fire, access, safety are part of it.
Yeah, that's right. Adequate emergency access is there. And concerning that language about the pre-existing nonconformity, when they say shall be allowed, that's basically saying that the town cannot enforce its setback requirement to require the 8-foot setback that is ordinarily required in the zone when there's a pre-existing nonconformity and the new project improves upon the pre-existing nonconformity. So that's shall be allowed with respect to enforcement of the zoning requirement. So you could not force them to apply for a variance for less than an 8-foot setback because they're proposing a 3-foot setback and they currently have essentially a 0 setback and a -1 for that small bump out. That is separate. The zoning requirement there and the shall be allowed language is separate from the planning board's authority when it's reviewing a site plan. And actually what they must review when reviewing a site plan is whether it's right there, adequate emergency access. And when the fire chief has raised these concerns and said, please work with us on a solution, our feeling is just really a project shouldn't be approved before that recommendation has kind of been followed through on. When there's these concerns about safety and emergency access being raised by somebody who does this stuff for a living, our feeling is that needs to be taken very seriously before the project is approved. Because it is separate from the zoning.
Okay. So yeah, you're primarily focused on the fire aspects of it. Ryan, I think you're concerned about the nonconformity in terms of setbacks. The existing building, along with a lot of other buildings on Fallbrook and other lakeside communities, we have that a lot of nonconforming lots. And I guess in this case, simply being said, it's going to improve the situation. It won't bring it to conformity, but it will certainly better than what they had before. So I guess as long as we're rowing in the same direction and going in a positive way, that's an improvement.
For clarification, my concerns are that the fire chief has a concern, and that, so why don't we just, if it's okay, why don't we just condition it that he's got to sign off on it? Isn't that what we would do with other applications? Like, he's asking for
a lot of times when we condition it on approval, it's somebody who generally has the authority to approve it. So like the county watershed, when they're approving septics, like it's within their purview to kind of approve it. The town engineer, they're going to sign off on the plan, so you condition it on their approval. Generally speaking, the chief doesn't approve plans. He provides comments and whatnot. I don't know what your guys' feelings are on this or whether it's appropriate to, but maybe continue it and try to get some further comments from the chief. But that's just a thought.
I think that's really all we're requesting at this point, is just to resolve these issues before the board acts on the project, because given sort of it's not like one line of a comment, it's several things, several tactical concerns, and he's asking for the applicant to work with the fire department and the town to resolve these things. Our feeling is sort of there's enough here that it really should be resolved before the planning board can really act on this and have addressed the adequate emergency access criterion in the code.
I think, Eric, this is not unique. I mean, as I said, there are a lot of homes on the lake that are almost abutting each other. And isn't this an issue that the fire department's looked at and probably come up with some sort of protocol or SOP plan that they would utilize in situations where homes were walls were almost touching each other? I mean, we're not creating a new issue here. It's probably an issue that's existed for years and years and years.
I mean, this is the Department for the City of Canandaigua and the city. I'm sure that there's plenty of buildings that are closer to lot lines or certainly abutting and touching. That said, I'm sure the chief has a reason to make the comments that he does.
Okay, and I'd be willing to go back and talk to him if he has a protocol or a plan that he can make sure is applied to this property that he's applied in other cases. And whether it's unique to this property in terms of having to do with the approval, it remains to be seen. But in the same regard, you know, it's not like this thing is a revelation that all of a sudden, hey, we got an issue out there. These buildings are too close to each other. What are we going to do?
Right, I would agree with you, Chuck, there, and I'm totally fine to have the conversation with him in terms of being a condition to approval, to make sure that he does have a plan in place, and we will not have any future issues. But you know, that's, you know, one of our thinking of that, just alone on Fallbrook itself, there's homes that are much closer to this, and obviously those have been there for a while, and our existing structures that have not had any issues. So,
Bob, Amanda, how do you feel about this?
I'm looking at Fallbrook, and there's a lot of houses that are close together. I think I see what he was saying about the water, but he was saying there's tactical issues about getting water. And only one issue really about the lot line was the ladder. But without a fence there, the ladder could be put on the other property and still have access. So I don't know.
Well, and if there's a water capacity problem, you can't put that on the applicant.
No, that's not on them.
And it's something I guess the city's got to consider in the town in terms of any needs for upgrades as far as the water.
Craig Hotelling, is there a water capacity issue there, to your knowledge?
We did have some water volume issues for firefighting, but we've since made the loop at the end of Aticiana Point that I believe has improved this area. Honestly, Fallbrook Park is identified in the water master plan. At some point, we're going to have to replace the line through there and upsize it to address more of these issues, but it shouldn't be anything to hold up this application. My understanding is that the fire department has the ability to fight a fire from the lakeside as well as the roadside, and these setbacks are pretty much all over Fallbrook. I don't think this represents anything unique. That's my opinion.
All righty. In my personal opinion, I'm willing to make it a condition to an approval, as part of an approval, that the fire chief be consulted and his concerns be that the applicant discuss it with the chief, and hopefully a mutual resolution could come about in terms of his concerns.
I would agree with that, Chuck. Yeah.
Okay.
Consulted or satisfied?
That was my concern as well, because I think it was Eric that pointed out that the fire chief really does not have an authority to grant or deny any type of permit for this project. So one of the advantages of having the planning board wait to get sort of essentially sign off from the fire department that they feel that their concerns have been addressed is that does create sort of an incentive and just kind of a built-in, there's still an approval mechanism, because if you grant the site plan approval saying you must consult with the fire department, but the fire department really doesn't get to say yes or no to this project, then there's not really a mechanism to enforce that. And furthermore, if the applicant is saying that they're not planning to start construction until after Labor Day anyhow, there's certainly time to consult with the fire department, address those issues, bring the findings to this board, get a letter from the fire department saying these issues have been addressed, and then the planning board can grant an approval with kind of more assurance that that issue has been taken care of, because there's a mechanism to essentially require it.
Yes, but isn't that what a condition is? I mean, we're not going to be able to, they're granting us approval upon a condition that we do work with the fire chief. So
But what, sure, no.
Condition, so it's exactly the same thing.
Oh, guys, why don't you address it to me, the chairman, as the board president? Okay, go ahead, Pete.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, I mean, when you approve something with a condition, that condition has to be met, or you are not signing off on the site plan approval. You can approve it tonight, letting us have that condition, and then we just have to show our findings that we worked with the fire chief, which is what we will do. And then from there, we show you that, and upon that condition being met, our approval is satisfied.
Yes, we would go to the fire department, to the chief and say, Chief, are you okay with this? And if he says, no, I'm not, I still have my concerns, the plan sits, the approval is on hold. But if he says, yes, I've sat down, my concerns have been resolved, we do have a method and a plan in terms of that particular site as to how it would be handled should a fire occur, then the conditions met and we move on.
So,
Okay. So
I'm confused.
Has this been done
The
before,
condition
Eric?
read- What's that?
Have we done this before with the fire code? I know there are plenty of homes on Fallbrook Park that are within this threshold of setbacks that we're talking about. Has this been required before as a base, like for other houses that have done this? Because from the projects that we've been done with, this is not something that's been requested before. Just trying to wonder.
Generally speaking, the fire code would be enforced by Chris Jensen,
Right.
and, he wouldn't issue a building permit if it didn't meet fire code requirements. I can't recall when a condition has been, and I haven't been here that long, most of you guys have been here longer than I have, that the chief be given an approval or whatever over the plans.
No, we're not
And that was
we're not starting that precedent at all. Nope.
So I guess the condition is correct in the way that it reads right now, the proposed conditions, that they comply with the comment letter rather than, the chief sign off on these plans.
Can I address that one more time?
Last call, Greg.
Sure. Our concern is really just exactly what you've just heard. Because the chief does not have a formal sign off, your typical condition to a site plan approval is if you also need a variance and the applicant wants to go out of order, there's a specific approval that they would get that would be in the minutes of a public meeting. In this case, it's just the fire department saying, I have serious concerns. You're correct. He does not have a specific approval to grant on this, but that's all the more reason, I think, to have his input first. Because let's say that they start to work with him and he says, well, wait a minute, there is one serious issue that you could address. That's a planning issue. And to get that input from the fire department first, when he's saying, please work with us, it gives the planning board the opportunity to make sure for itself that the response was satisfactory rather than granting the approval now when the fire department doesn't really have a specific approval to grant here.
My comments are that when I look at this whole project from 20,000 feet, even though we're making improvements on the nonconformity, we're looking at a lot coverage that's over 50%. That usually we only have 25%. And so we're putting a lot of stuff on this lot, combined with the concerns of the fire department. I recognize that we're talking about delaying something for 2 weeks, but I think I would advocate that we just give this 2 weeks for the fire department and the engineers to talk about stuff and come back and say, yeah, you know what, we talked about it, it's okay. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's fair. This is different, I think, Anthony, because you're picking up a house and you're moving it, and there's so much happening that you could make a justification that this house is too big for this lot. And we recognize that through everything that we're seeing. And I think this issue about safety from the fire department, we don't get that very often. I mean, if the fire chief felt that it was important enough to write a letter, I kind of respect that, and I want to, I respect that opinion, but that's just mine, and I'm willing to call the question.
Okay, we got to move on here, folks. Pete, Anthony, would you guys be willing to take the 2 weeks?
I mean,
or do you want to consult with your clients?
Ryan,
I guess. Go ahead.
Was that a motion to continue, or were you just asking the other board members their opinion?
Well, I don't know. I'm just on the record. Anthony asked if this is normal. I mean, every lot is specific, and I just want to. This is a lot of building on a small lot. I don't think it hurts us to just cross our T's and dot our I's on this. This is going to be a house that's going to be around for a while. If we just want to satisfy the people that are important, and including neighbors, including the emergency responders, like that's
Okay.
our purview, and I don't see why 2 weeks would be terrible. Let's do it right. I don't know. Let's do
Well,
the.
my opinion, to be honest, is I think you're improving the conditions on a lot that obviously had problems before. In terms of fire safety, I think it's going to be constructed, or access will be better. It'll have automated sprinkler systems where the existing house did not. And in comparison to what's there now, I think what is proposed is much better. I certainly don't want to disregard the chief's concerns, but in the same regard, I can't believe this is not a concern that he has up and down the lake. And I don't think we should be holding this applicant up regarding an issue that has probably been in the forefront many times with the fire department.
Pete, is this going to have sprinklers, or is this just going to be fire rated as far as like the time it takes for fire to get through?
That is still in discussion. We're definitely doing the exterior wall, and we are looking into what a sprinkler system would be, but we have not made the final call on that.
Still will be better than what's there, right?
It'll definitely be better than what's there. I mean, even showing you those existing photos that I had sent you, I had showed you earlier. I mean, the house was in not great condition as is. Obviously, none of that house was fire rated or fireproofed or built to today's standards.
So from a fire and safety standpoint, this is a much better proposal than what currently exists.
We believe it would be much better than what's currently there.
Okay.
And Pete, you did say you're going to do option number 2, where he said sprinklers or that wall. You said, so you are complying with his request on the or, and you're doing the exterior wall.
That is correct. That is correct.
So just make that clear. Yeah.
We are definitely doing the exterior wall in terms of fire rated, and just doing our due diligence. We will look into what a sprinkler system costs and see if it's feasible or something that we do want to entertain. But we are doing the or in terms of our 302.1 exterior walls.
Right, and the police, and the fire department chief there moreover is his tactical concerns are for water supply and exterior hose lines, which your plan has no merit on, and it's on the town there.
Correct. I mean, in reality, hose lines and getting around this building is going to be much simpler than it is currently today. We do not hinder them getting around on the southern property line to get to the lake facade. We give them more room on the north setback line. And as you said, the water, it can't be just our house that is dealt with in terms of the water issue for the town.
Right, so one would say you listened to the fire department and you've taken on one of these options for approval.
Correct.
Can I comment on that one more time? Just very quickly. I know you want to move on.
Yeah, please, Greg.
Okay, so the 2 options that were in his letter, we're talking about fire code compliance. It has to do with the or is either the sprinkler system or the construction materials for the wall. They are talking about complying with one. It sounds like they're not sure which one, but separate from that code compliance issue is the tactical concerns. And it's not just hose and water level. It's access for equipment. It's access for firefighters. It's ladder access. And just, again, to be clear, yes, there are other homes in Fallbrook Park that have a small setback, but the standard here for planning board site plan approval is not, are they making it better? It's, is there, quote, adequate emergency access under the code? And it just looks like there's an open issue on that. And even if they are making it better, and we're not questioning that, the standard is there adequate emergency access? And that's what we're saying there's an open issue on, and that's what the fire chief has said.
Okay, and I think they will go back to him and ask him, and he will confirm yes or no. Any other questions other than fire related on this application? I see ECB had some comments, nothing of any consequence. The county public works department, they had a concern about, or a question about the location of the lateral. Jim Fletcher was concerned about the size of the service. Is this the one that's 1.5 inch? Yeah. Jim questioned why was such a large lateral. But anyway, that would have to be resolved with Jim. Greg, MRB have any concerns? I think Lance had mentioned something about drainage onto 3314. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that was correct.
Is it the overflow dry well?
It would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the south side.
Right. It just
Yeah,
approximately.
with that, we were gonna make sure that we change that grading a little bit to make sure that that water stays on us as it makes its way to the lake. If there is an event that the dry well does overflow, we'll make sure that we contain that on our property as it makes its way to the lake. That'll be addressed, absolutely. We won't be putting any water on the neighboring property.
Pete, a quick question on the color of the the material, the facade of the facing the lake. I think in that one rendering of Sue's, it almost looked white. I guess it'll be earth colors, hopefully. And,
I mean, in terms of Sue's is a white background trying to exemplify the vegetation on that rendering. So that is not what we are going for. I think, the hues will be more in the natural color scheme, maybe a grayish for the field and maybe white for the trim and a gray stone of some sort. Those aren't set, but that's where we're leaning towards, and that's what my client has been wanting to do. So the majority of it would be gray or natural.
Okay, good. Just getting it on record. Anybody else have anything from the board? Okay, well, we can go one or two directions here. We can either proceed with considering seeker and site plan approval, or consider a continuance. I will open it up to the board as to which way you would like to go, and we'll entertain a motion either way.
My preference is, this is Bob, is to give a motion for approval on both. That's how I would proceed with the conditions for the fire department.
And again, it's just that the condition reads essentially that the concerns are addressed or comply with the comment letter. Regarding access of equipment, it's not set in stone necessarily, right? So it's just that it's going to meet fire code is essentially what that letter says, as far as what would have teeth.
Well, I think in different, we should also include whatever concerns, or at least find out if there's a plan or method or regarding the safety concerns as to the restricted side yards, how they would be able to, does that concern them as far as being able to fight a fire on either property? I don't know how you say that, because it's the second part of the letter. It's the part of the letter that Greg is bringing to our attention. And I think that should be discussed further with the chief by the applicant, and that the chief say we discussed it and we have a plan moving forward as to should anything occur out there. You understand what I'm saying?
So you want kind of to see what their plan would be should there be a fire that needs their access to that side? You want
Eric,
kind of know how...
can you bring up the fire department letter then, real quick?
Yeah, it's more than just the fire code.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's where he says in the bottom.
The tactical concerns.
Well, please work with the fire department for a suitable solution. So, I mean, that would be really the condition is. The condition is for the builder to work with the fire department and the town for a suitable solution.
So is the fire department and the chief able to say, this is no good?
No.
Would it be the fire chief saying that if the planning board has this approved, this is the plan we'd have in place to fight a fire if it occurs, something along those lines, or I mean, are we putting this if the chief says no, it's not approved? I'm just trying to figure out. Or if we put something in place in writing with the fire chief, that would be enough to get the sign off on it. We're just trying to figure
I
out.
feel like that's the difficulty of doing it
Right.
this way. It's just that there's nothing specific that the fire chief will grant approval or not for. So giving the planning board a look at what the fire department
Well,
says
what are we
in
going
response
to,
to the outreach.
Craig,
from the
what are we going to find out in the next 2 weeks? I mean, what more, I mean, what are we finding out that we can't find out through a condition and
I
have,
would just say, if we're asking for them to have a conversation with the chief and the town, then it might be appropriate to do it before the planning board grants approval. Because we're not going to see what that conversation is or what it even comes to if it's conditioned on that approval.
well, now you got my backside up on the staff. I mean, the staff,
Motion to continue this CPN 20022 for 2 weeks.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Amanda. I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Bob, how did you vote on that?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion fails. I'll make we got to do, I don't want to do seeker if we're not going to act on it.
We got to act.
Well, the concern is if we do seeker and then the site plan is rejected, then the clock is running in terms of the clock's running as far as time we have to make a decision. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we consider this a type 2 seeker. And since it is type 2, no further action is required by this board. So I'll make that motion. Does anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to consider this project as a type 2 seeker. Any further discussions? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion has passed. Bob, do you want to make a motion or consider site plan approval?
I'll make the motion for approval of site plan, single stage site plan approval at 3312 Fallbrook Park for Vanessa Association representing Richard Quell and Kelly Vestal.
Subject to?
Oh, subject to how many conditions there, Greg? I can't see them. There'll be 10 conditions.
Okay.
This is Amanda, was there the condition on the walkway? And then would we include that condition on the coordination with the fire chief? What would be the additional conditions?
Oh, you're right. The walkway condition that the walkway be some sort of porous or sort of porous neutral material. And then condition 6 is the reference to the fire department.
Oh.
Do we want to massage that a little bit?
I think that clears it, says it right there.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I will second your motion, Bob.
Thank you.
So I'm going to vote no against this just because I am in good conscience. I feel like I'm not satisfied that the public safety issues are satisfied. I think it's an awesome plan. I think it's a better plan, but out of respect for the process and for the fire chief, I'm gonna vote against this because I just don't feel comfortable moving forward. Something doesn't sit right with me on this one, and so I'm gonna vote against it.
Okay, I'll call the question. I have a motion, a second, to approve a single-stage site plan subject to 10 conditions as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I think, Amanda, could I poll your vote?
I said aye for
Okay.
approval.
All right,
and-
excuse
Sorry,
me?
go ahead. I was gonna say maybe we could have some more context around the fire chief's comments and if this will be a trend or is considered, and it kind of to go back to, this is probably one of the first times we've seen this. Is this going to be something that we continue to see and have to consider? And is there more conversations needed?
I agree, and that's part of the reason I'm somewhat upset that, this should be discussed at both a staff and fire. It's something that exists in the town currently, and it'll continue to exist with the current lots we have on the lake. And I would hope that discussions would occur both at staff level, and if need be, we could discuss it at the planning board level. But we're not venturing into something here that hasn't been an issue before.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion and the vote was 3-1 in favor of the site plan approval. I thank everyone that participated in the discussion. It's the most time I ever spent on the fire chief's letter, but hey, we all got to learn. All got to do something new. That's why we're here. So, thanks, folks.
Thank you to the board.
Have a great night.
Can I make a suggestion as far as changes to findings, and you guys can approve as you feel it's needed? That the findings, especially with regard to comment 10, that you find that the proposed plans are adequate for public safety or something to that effect?
I don't feel that way.
Oh, I think the comment 10 just says comments were received. There's nothing.
I think it's fine, yeah.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I apologize to everybody else sitting out there in TV land. We'll try to move a little quicker. And the next one up would be Robert and Susan Taylor, owners of property at 3564 Antonia Point. And boy, did I butcher that name up. They're seeking a single stage site plan approval for the construction of attached garage and associated improvements within the RLD. They got their ZBA approval last week for their variance. So I guess, Anthony, are you taking the lead on this?
Yeah. So the project at hand is a garage addition with some storage space above it. I have on Otishiana Point. Robert and Susan Taylor currently have a single family residence. It's on a little less than an acre. It's split by the private driveway. I don't know if you can pull up the plan, Eric.
Yep, 1 second.
Okay. So currently they have an attached garage with a single family home, and they're going to expand on the garage. So currently the way that the garage works for the current house is there is a large driveway on the south side of the lot, and it's a side load garage, and there's a few windows on the east side of the house to let light into the garage and make the front of the garage look a little nicer from the road. So the plan going forward with this garage addition is to have a front load garage with an asphalt driveway. The current asphalt driveway, most of the driveway is going to be reconstituted to grass. We are going to be using a grass paved product. So it's going to be a rolled out GeoGrid mesh. There will be a slight base of stone underneath it, then it'll get soil, and then it'll be planted with grass. So, you know, it'll have the look and the erosion control that grass helps us do with runoff. And we'll have the aesthetics of grass, but we'll also have the structure to, if in case the tailors need to, you know, park a car off the side to not put it on that private drive because it is narrow. Most of the water runoff that we're dealing with, we are going to connect it into an existing underground system that goes to the lake. We will have less runoff than is there now due to the fact that we are removing the existing driveway. So we'll have less driveway runoff. We'll have less, you know, everything associated with driveway runoff, any kind of, you know, chemicals from vehicles and things of that nature. So there will be less of that going to the lake, but we are going to be using the existing drainage system to tie into that and then head water out to the lake. That's pretty much the project at hand. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah,
Anthony.
oh, go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry. I think you know what I'm going to ask you, but that driveway slopes into the garage and you have the channel there for drain.
Yep.
So the possibility of, like you mentioned, the oils and everything will go into that drain and then straight out to the lake. Is there any sediment control or?
There is not. It's less of an area than it was before, so it's an improvement on it. Typically for a single family house, we don't address any kind of issues like that. In an overall aspect of this property, it's less than what's there before, so we're trying to improve on the system. Hence the reason we're using the grass. We're not really dealing with a lot coverage because the lot is rather large. So we're doing it more for storm runoff and aesthetics.
Yeah, I'm just worried about, you got a straight shot right to the lake without any type of filtering system. That's my only concern on that property.
Yeah, and related to that, the roof drains, Anthony, I guess some are coming out on splash blocks. The others look like they're being piped directly into the collection.
Everything goes into an underground system as of right now.
Oh, okay.
The roof drains go to the underground conveyance system. That's the 4-inch pipe that goes directly to the lake. So with this system, the reason why we're kind of doing what we're doing is in an overall aspect, we have less lot coverage than we have now, so there will be less runoff towards the lake.
Okay. Well, I guess it gets into a concern that's been a recent concern of the board is the roof runoff, as well as the stuff, the issue that Bob brought up as far as the driveway, and you are collecting it and piping it directly to the lake.
Yeah, we're basically tying into the existing. We didn't really propose any containment on the site due to the fact that we are decreasing the overall lot coverage for the project. There will be less impervious area than there is now.
Greg, do you have anything to add to this? I don't have Lance's letter up. I know it's been it's a discussion of the board the last couple of meetings regarding runoff directly into the lake. I think we sort of.
I do think there's some opportunities for these guys to possibly add in rain gardens or dry wells or something along those lines. It's not very significant to deal with, at least make some attempt at infiltration. But I thought the big hang up on this one was mostly the steep slope of the driveway. Right? Or am I on the wrong application?
No, that's the next application.
Okay.
Yeah.
The driveway here is only 6%, and there's really no way around it. So.
How did I miss that? Yeah, it's only 6%.
I mean, there's really no way. I mean, it is a little bit of a slope, but with trying to match the existing grade of the house and where the existing private drive is, there's really no way around trying to flatten that out. But 6% is not going to be.
No, Yeah, that
a
was,
detriment.
just to be clear, that was definitely a comment for the next application.
Just checking.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, but yeah, I would say if anything, there's looks like there is some opportunity in places to do some small spot treatment, but that's probably about it.
Okay. That sound doable, Anthony?
Yeah, that's doable. We could definitely put in some sort of, probably a small dry well on the south side, over a little bit closer to the lake, so we can get it away from that water line and that sewer line that crosses in the front, so we're not kind of impacting that.
Yeah, dry well would help a lot there on both sides. There's drainage on both sides that'd help.
Yes, I believe that's doable.
Okay.
Great.
Anybody else have anything? Ryan, do you have any comments on this application? Nope. Ryan?
Nope, I'm good.
You're good. Okay.
Well, I mean, you brought it up, so you
The
got
roof drain.
it
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
I don't gotta bring it up.
Hey, you've
We're
taught Bob
handling
and
that. We're gonna handle that.
Ryan, you've taught Bob and I well that always look at the roof drains and the driveways. Amanda, anything that got your attention?
No, nothing from me.
Okay. Just looking through the third-party reviews, the ZBA did grant approval last week. If it's not already stated, make sure you note that variance received on your plan,
Will do.
Anthony. We got no recommendation from the county planning board. We talked about the roof drains of the lake. Really, shoreline guidelines is not an issue because you're not doing it on the lake side of the property. So I
No,
guess,
everything that we're doing is not gonna be visible, so.
okay. The county public works, they mentioned possible lateral conflict.
The sewer's in the front, so.
Okay.
I mean, they provided us with the information where the sewer lateral and everything was, so I was kind of confused by that comment.
Okay. ECB, they brought up about trying to be conservative in terms of porous pavement. I think with your GeoGrid and soil stabilization grass, that certainly does that. You're not increasing the runoff. I think the dry wells we talked about will slow the runoff, retain it to some degree rather than going straight in. We talked about the MRB letter. No comments from the fire chief or Kevin or the town of Gorham. And that pretty well covers it. The second floor, just confirming that will be a storage area, correct?
I believe so. The owners are on, but I believe right now it is a storage area.
Okay. Or will be. Okay.
Well, yeah, when it's built, not right now, obviously.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to talk, bring their concerns to the board? Okay. Any other further comments from the board itself? Okay. If not, this is a type 2 seeker application. I will make a motion that we consider the type 2 seeker application, which means no further action is needed on our part regarding seeker. So I will make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Got a motion second from Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, no. All right, I will entertain a motion on the site plan approval, noting that we probably want to add that one condition regarding, gosh, what was it? Oh, the dry wells.
Dry wells.
Mhm.
Yep.
This is Amanda. Let me know if I mess this up, but I'll make a motion to approve CPN 20-028 single sites plan approval with 6 conditions total for 3564 Yep.
Yep, that's
Yep.
Tiziana.
Oceana.
I'm
Yep,
still not going to say it right, but I will make that motion.
very good. All right, I will look for a second on that.
I'll second it.
Go ahead, Rob.
Got it.
Motion by Amanda. Well done, Amanda. You didn't screw it up at all. It was well done. And second by Bob to approve a single site plan approval for the reference property. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I apologize if I missed it. We did the seeker type 2.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
I made the motion. Bob seconded.
I actually recorded it.
Okay, so we can go back to the tapes if we need to. All righty. So that concludes action on that. Let's move ahead. Thank you, Taylors, for joining us, and sorry to keep you waiting, but good luck with your project.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move to Greg's favorite project. So he's ready to shine on this one. It's Marathon Engineering Representative Stephen Day, owner of property 4841 County Route 16, who is seeking a single stage site plan approval for the replacement and expansion of a driveway, installation of a new septic system within the RLD district. Pete, is that Pete's representing
Yes, sir.
Marathon?
Yeah,
There
you
he
guys
is.
hear me?
Good evening.
Hi, so I'm Pete Gorman with Marathon Engineering. I
You
believe.
just speak up a little bit.
soft.
Yep,
Speak
speak
up.
up a little bit, Pete.
Sorry, how about now?
That's better. Okay.
All right. So I'm Pete Gorman with Marathon Engineering. I believe Steve Day, the owner, is on via phone. We're at 39 Cascade Drive in Rochester, New York. So this project is located at 4841 Westlake Road, right across from Dual Road. The property is 1.1 acres and zoned RLD. The main component of this project is the installation of a new septic system. The existing system is just reaching end of life, and it's located very close. It's the existing absorption field is at the rear of the house, fairly close to Canandaigua Lake, on that steep slope area. The proposed system moves the absorption field to about 270 feet away from the water's edge. It's a new septic tank and a new pump tank, and it's called a Presby EnviroFin system. So it's a mechanical dispersion system that reaches into a sand bed. So it's a small footprint, but it works very well in confined spaces. So moving the septic system back so far from the lake, it improves the filtration, and there's a lot more lawn area and vegetation between the system and the lake for nutrient uptake, reducing nitrogen. So it's all in all, this is a good system that'll be good for the health of Canandaigua Lake. I know you guys are looking to start replacing a lot of these older systems as quick as we can. This system was approved by the watershed inspector on 3/18/2020. So we're all set with approvals with that agency.
Do you have
the
final,
second part,
Pete, do you have final approval from the
yes, sir. I
watershed?
have signed plans from Tyler.
Oh, okay. We saw, he sent you an email, said the concept, it looked good, but okay.
Yeah, I have signed plans and I can forward those on to the town with a signature.
Oh,
if you need.
that's fine.
He
All the
sent
better.
us
Okay.
a letter back in March 18th.
Correct. Yeah, I believe he sent on a copy to the town.
Okay, I do recall seeing that conceptually it looked good, but still it was not the permit, but good, you got the permit. Okay, move on.
Correct. So in order to construct this new system and install the septic tank and the pump tank, which is down on the southern, right there below, southern part of the house, we have to take out the existing retaining wall. It's an old timber wall that's starting to fail. And we need to take that out to allow for the heavy machinery to get down and excavate those two larger tanks. So at the conclusion of this project, instead of rebuilding an expensive retaining wall, we're proposing just to lay the new driveway right at what would have been, I guess, the natural grade and natural slope of the property. So that's essentially why we're here. The layout of the driveway, we're expanding it. We are adding some impervious, about 300 square feet. The additional runoff created by this is fairly insignificant. We're looking at about 0.04 cubic feet per second during the 100-year storm event. And we are discharging that to an existing swale. It's an existing swale that takes some drainage from across the road, parts of Westlake Road, and essentially the entire southern portion of this property. Basically, the entire southern portion of the property drains to the south, and the northern portion of the property drains to the north. And in order to prevent erosion and slow down the velocity of the stormwater coming down that driveway, we have a stone edge treatment down at the bottom of the driveway that will significantly reduce the velocity of any stormwater before we discharge it to that swale. That swale is well vegetated. There's plenty of scrub trees and grasses and existing trees down there that'll keep the velocity of any stormwater to a minimum. As part of this package, we're requesting 2 waivers, one for the steepness of the driveway. We're proposing a 17% slope just in the middle. The landing area up by the right of way, we are not changing the geometry. That's staying at 8%. The sort of the middle section of the driveway, we're proposing steeper at 17%. But down at the bottom of the driveway at the loading and unloading area, we have a flatter section that's at 5%. So we're requesting a waiver on the steepness of the driveway slope. Additionally, we're requesting a waiver for the need to calculate and show the site distance on the site plan. We're not changing the geometry within the right of way or for the first 25 or so feet from the edge of pavement. So the site distance as a result of this project is not changing at all. It is what it is. And I don't believe the county had any comments or said they needed to have any approval on this project. So that's what I have. I'm here to answer questions and comments.
All right, I'll open it up to the board.
Did the neighbor have any issues to the south about the additional water runoff into their swale there?
We have not heard anything. We did get a comment about some invasive plants that might be to the south, but I don't know if that's necessarily part of this application.
Yeah,
we did send notice to the neighbors, but we haven't heard anything from them.
Okay.
And that is an existing swale that's designed to convey stormwater. So it's, that's why that swale is there. The additional runoff, it would have no impact to the property or to their house or, any of the features that, it's going down into a gully that's pretty inaccessible by people and that property owner.
Yeah, appears that way.
What kind of condition is that swale in from the property line to the gully? Is it?
It's not
vegetated.
Mowed. It's
it's
very
vegetated. It's not eroded, in other words.
No, okay. Sir. And like I said, the majority of this property, well, the southern portion of this property drains that way already. So, we're not changing any type of drainage patterns or, introducing any significant amount of additional stormwater. Like I said, it's about 0.04 cubic feet per second.
Hey, Peter, just a quick question. Is this a year-round home?
It's primarily I guess a fair weather residence. It is not the primary residence, no.
That'd be a real interesting driveway in the winter.
It would be. The owner is aware, Steve is aware of that, but this is not a residence that's used in the winter, and it really putting it back on the original grade kind of gives it a second point of access around the south. So you can go right from the driveway to the rear of the property without having to, go north up that existing sidewalk and then to the front of the building. So it kind of gives another access around to the rear. And there's an existing deck with stairs on the south side of that where they just put in a new tram. So that allows quick access right there. So it's a much better layout for the property. That tram was recently put in, I think, 2015.
Pete, you didn't show a lot of detail with the trench, the stone trench and the perforated pipe, and then that goes to an end section. There's an outfall there. I don't know, Greg, do you have any concerns as to the design of that system? I guess it's a stone bed with a pipe running through, perforated pipe with
Yeah,
an
there's a cross-section detail on the lower left of the design
Oh, there
page.
is? Okay. I didn't get that far on my drawing. Okay, will your end section have any type of protection at the outfall at all?
I'm not showing any. I think we're okay with putting in some riprap there. We just have to get permission from the neighbor to the south. It would really be up to them just because of the closeness. We are moving the driveway. Driveway did have a setback of about 2 feet. We're increasing that to 4 feet. So we can certainly take a look at that and add some riprap to the end, I believe. I don't think that would be a problem.
Is it possible to provide a little bit of even an earthen curbing behind your infiltration trench?
Sort of a backsplash?
Yeah, I'm just saying, when you get into, I guess maybe it's less of a concern, but when you get into colder weather, if it's frozen and then we get a runoff or whatever, I just know those things generally don't like that. You don't get as much infiltration as you would anticipate. But if you can create at least something to kind of pull it and give it a little bit of head, maybe you can force it through this, if it's minor frozen.
So you're talking about maybe raising that, 6 inches behind and having just a little, a short berm, 6 inches or so.
Yeah, like a little 6-inch little earthen berm behind it.
I don't think that would be an issue, Steve. I think you're on the phone. If you got an issue with that, you can.
Yeah. My concern is to be able to get equipment down to service if I need to replace pumps or a tank in the future. So I want to make sure it's accessible, down at the end of that driveway, whatever we can do to make sure the runoff is good. But I want to be able to make sure in the future, if I need to get large equipment down there to service the septic pumps and tank, that I can do that.
Yeah, and I think for Steve, they're just talking about like a little 6-inch backstop. So I don't think there's any issue with heavy equipment being able to
if it
get over
doesn't
that.
prevent large equipment from getting down, Pete, into the side yard, right, to service, this whole new system, then I'm fine with it.
Well, hopefully, once you put it in, Steve,
Driveway's gonna get you downhill pretty quick.
yeah. Hopefully, once you put the system in, Steve, you won't have to put too much heavy equipment down there. Hopefully.
Well, me or who knows, 50 years, 20 years from now, somebody else,
Yeah, sure. Folks, what do you feel about the slope variance? We're going 8 versus 3 normally on alpha, but as Pete said, that's existing what we have there now, and then we're increasing to 17%. I do recall in your letter of operations or whatever that you did state that it's primarily a fair weather home, and you stated that privately, publicly. So I guess the concern as far as ice and bad weather conditions, somebody coming down there sideways is not a bigger condition. I did have one question. You say you're trying to keep 5 feet of cover over that water service, but you're making a cut in there at one point of 4 feet. I think it's 4 foot of cut. Is that right, Pete?
Yeah, and that's approximate where that water service is. We're gonna have to, find out exactly where it is.
So you think that water service is down 9 feet? Because you want to keep 5 and 4 foot cut. That'll get the 4 foot cut. You'll be left with 5 feet of cover.
Well, it depends. So that's, there's a retaining wall and fill in there. So it depends on when that water service was put in. If that water service was put in before that retaining wall and that fill was put in, then it was 5 feet below where the natural grade is. So we'll have to take a look at that and make sure that, you know, we have that covered. It is a concern, but, you know,
Yeah, you might want to relocate that water service. I mean, just in general, even if you only have 5 foot of cover and you're putting, is this a paved or a stone drive over top of it? I mean, and you're gonna have minimal usage on that water service during the winter, it'll freeze.
Okay, we can look at, you know, we got to take that out anyway for the construction, so we can locate that water service and dig a test pit and get a depth on it and make that.
How does the rest of the board feel on the 17% slope? I mean, that was a concern I had originally, but I went out and looked at it, and, you know, again, being a seasonal home, I'm more concerned about the water surface now than necessarily the slope of the driveway.
Are
Brian?
safely pulling onto Westlake Road in both directions, the ability to pull safely onto, especially with dual road across the street there. And then as per the steepness, we allow for waivers in the steep slope law for driveways. So if the landowner is aware that this is a big deal, then, you know, that's their right. My concern would be pulling out safely onto Westlake Road, that there's enough area there for a car or whatever to approach safely and enter Westlake Road safely.
And that's what's shown here is what's there now, right? Essentially out at Westlake Road.
It's 8% what, from this to the 775, and then 17 from there to 770. So there's really only minimal grade change right at the front end of it. So it's relatively the same as right now.
But yeah, we're leaving that as close as possible to existing.
Is that standard code? Does that satisfy code, Eric?
I believe so. Greg might know more about that. It would be in our site design criteria.
Yeah, I mean, he's asking for you mean for the entrance onto the driveway?
Yeah.
Being 8%. Yeah, I mean, we allow up to 10%. Typically. And so I don't necessarily see too much of an issue with the entrance. I guess that I would probably address the waivers and probably the order of, as it relates to site distance, I would concur. There's probably, I would feel comfortable with granting that waiver of not showing that because, you know, he's not changing really anything with the entrance and exit to his property. I can concur with that. As it relates to the waiver on the steepness of the driveway, I just caution the board. You know, I'm concerned about the precedent that you sent by you would establish by granting this waiver. So just make sure whatever if you do grant that waiver, have a very good reasoned approach as to why, not just because the owner says I'm okay with 17%. I'd be, you know, have they driven over a 17% driveway? It's fairly extreme. You'll notice it when you're driving down it. So just make sure that that's part of your, if you do grant a waiver, make sure there is a very good reason why, so that we don't have this blighted in other cases.
Greg, do you think we should not grant the waiver?
Again, I'm saying use caution because I'm concerned with the precedent that it would set, because there are a number of locations where you know, people could have had, you know, where's the threshold? Is it 20%? Is it 25%? Is it 30%? We have these rules in the site design for a reason. I'm just saying, if you're going to grant a waiver, make sure you give a very good reason so we don't establish a precedent.
The reason to give.
This is Steve. Hang on. This is
Hold on.
This is the owner. The
Go ahead, Steve.
precedent is that without doing this, I will not put a new septic system into that property. because
Right.
I can't get the equipment down there to do it now. So, you know, if I can't rip this driveway out and do that, and I'm not going to spend the money to build that dang thing back up again and not be able to get equipment down there for some future owner down the road years from now to be able to service whatever, you know, there's pumps, there's tanks. So I think it's a unique situation in the sense that the reason for this exception on the steepness of the driveway is to be able to put a new septic system in. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be asking for this exception.
And if I can take some experience from the zoning board, because they're always concerned with creating precedent, it's really a matter of detailing in the findings, you know, what the reasons were that this particular property was unique. So with relation to the septic system, which was, you know, which the owner just mentioned, you know, label and say, you know, why is this property unique, so that other people can't say, oh, you created a precedent. That's always kind of how Chris Nadler has guided us in the zoning board.
Yeah, where's Chris on this?
Do you want to
Again,
hear from him?
No,
We can call him. He's, I feel like you guys can probably handle this, but if you want,
I
me to
think
give
we
him a
can.
call.
I think we can handle it. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was a joke. I apologize.
Taking the night off again.
Bob, you have any concerns regarding the grading? The driveway slope, rather?
I do not. My only concern was the neighbor.
Yeah.
No concern.
Yeah, and from my perspective, when I first saw the plan and looked at it, I said, wow, 17%. But then I went out there and I looked at it, and it really isn't that bad. And the fact, again, it's a seasonal home, so it really won't have much traffic or use during the winter. I think, and the upfront, it's all existing conditions, nothing's changing. I'd be more concerned about the 4 parking places up further to the north, where you're sort of almost either backing into or backing out of on the Westlake Road, but that's not subject to this application. And as long as we control the outflow out of that stone trench down below, any water runs down that hill, I think, yeah, I'm okay with it. How about you, Amanda?
Unmuted. I agree.
Okay. Well, let me just, while you guys continue to think about it, let me look through our checklist here.
There is a significant infestation of Japanese knotweed on that property.
Yep. All right. Now that we can handle.
If that is not controlled, that is an noxious invasive species that needs to be managed. Mr. Day, are you okay to try to get a landscaper out there and manage that stuff?
What is it? What is it?
Japanese knotweed.
I'm not sure what that is.
It's an invasive plant that looks almost like it's a long stem. It grows. It dies. It's a extremely invasive.
Where is it at on the property?
Can you see the screen right now?
No, he's on the phone.
I'm just on the phone. I'm not on Zoom.
I think on Tom Schwartz's email, he's the one that brought it to our attention. It's to the south of the driveway. I think that's what he mentioned. Do you?
That would be my neighbor's property, most likely.
Yeah, we only have driveway at about 2 feet off the property line. So the majority of that's in that gully and on the neighbor's property.
Eric, do you have Tom's email?
Yeah.
It's in the FTP. So.
If it's on my property, I'm more than willing to take it out.
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Are we good on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So Pete, you had said the septic system had been approved.
Yes, sir.
Okay, County Public Works said no further permits required because nothing's being done within the right of way. We did not hear from Kevin. We did not hear from the fire company. Jim Fletcher had no comments. ECB was concerned about the slope and the erosion coming off the driveway. I think we discussed that. Watershed inspector, that was part of the septic system. I would just recommend that we have a note put on the plan that the applicant is aware that the slope of the driveway is, well, I don't want to do it that way. Why don't we just say we granted a waiver for the driveway slope, and some sort of note be put in the plan to that effect. The driveway slope itself, as well as the approach up at Westlake Road.
Let's use the applicant's exact words. The site's going to be disturbed because he's replacing a septic system with a new and improved septic system, and because it's already disturbed, we're granting a waiver for this special situation because the disturbance is there, and they're going to make a driveway out of it.
Okay, and I think the minutes and the findings should certainly reflect that, but I'm just coming up with a note that be placed in the plan that says that a waiver was granted. So that's certainly the reason for the granting. You're right, Ryan.
We could do it similar to how we do
Zoning
zoning variance and just say waiver granted at the 624 planning board.
Okay, all right.
Something along those lines.
Notes on the site plan too for revegetating the septic system, the septic field.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The phosphorus notes that we require in the town.
Yeah, there's a separate set of septic plans.
It'll be on the plans regardless.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks. All right. I'll make a motion.
Ryan, why don't you take the seeker, which is a type 2.
Where are we? Let me zoom down to here. All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve both the seeker as a type 2 action under CPN 20-02029 and also the site plan as discussed for 4841 County Road 16 20-029 with the 7 would be the outfall of the pipe. 8 would be the 6-inch berm behind it. Is that correct? So 8 conditions total?
We have 8 shown on here. Are there some that's getting removed?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, 8.
I think Ryan's added 2 more.
Well, is it the? I see 8. Is there supposed to be 10?
Well, this does not include the 2 that you mentioned, the backsplash, 6-inch backsplash down at the drain, as well as the outfall protection at the end section.
Riprap is that would make it 10 total.
All right, 10 conditions.
Is that correct, everybody? I think so, right?
I think.
Yep.
By Joe, I think you got it. Okay, so Brian's made a double motion. Made a rare move of making a double motion for both seeker and site plan approval.
I must be getting late. I'm getting cold out here.
Put a hat on. Keep your head warm.
Chickens pretty soon here.
All righty. We're getting giddy. Let's see. So we got a motion, a second, or did we get a second? I'll second if we didn't. And we got both seeker and site plan approval. Guys, give me a motion for all in favor, or give me a yay or nay. All in favor?
Yay.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, thanks, Pete. Mr. Day, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Enjoy things out there at daybreak. Okay. Not to keep anybody else waiting. I know we've got, is Rocco out there or somebody involved with the Brickyard? And
Rocco and Anthony are both here.
Okay. All right, guys. You're shooting for an MUO. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Oops, sorry, wrong one.
Rock, are you there?
That's the quietest he's ever been, so he can't be there.
Hang on one second. I know he's on.
Yeah, a couple people muted.
He's probably muted.
He's muted.
He's probably screaming into the
There he is.
microphone. Earth to Rocco. Whoop, he muted.
Muted it.
Hey,
Oh,
tell him to
yep.
stop muting himself.
Speak,
I'm
Rocco.
muted now. Go ahead, talk. I don't know what's going on. Okay.
Hang on one second, guys. I'm trying to walk him through it.
While we're waiting here just a second.
Yeah,
we
why
do have
don't
a short-
you, why don't you tell us the procedure here, Eric?
Oh, for this? Okay, sure. So the MUO process, they petition the town board, which they have done. The town board then essentially says, go to the planning board for their initial recommendation or comments anyways. And that's what we're doing here tonight. When we're done, we will send it back to the town board for, I guess, more comments from them that they can add on to your own. If they feel it's appropriate to move this MUO rezoning forward, at that point, they will direct the applicant to apply for a preliminary site plan approval. And then, of course, it kind of goes back and forth after that. Let me see here. Our comments tonight.
I'm here, folks.
Hey,
So.
thought you fell asleep, Rocco.
I did, actually.
Should be based on the comprehensive plan and the land use adjacent to the site and kind of what they're asking for.
All right, Eric's just gone through the procedure, Rocco. All right. So this is a property that we have not looked at. It's contiguous to properties we have looked at. So the Venezias, you want to tell us what you have in mind here?
So,
Rocco, you're getting feedback.
is that better?
Yeah.
I had my phone, my speakerphone on. That's off now. So we now own and control this 60-acre parcel, plus we own all the land contiguous to the north. That would take us up to Thomas Road. So as the first part of this project, we want to start the development from Airport Road and work our way northward and eventually end up on Thomas.
And the reason for that being?
The reason for that being is twofold. I have a 5-year development agreement on Thomas Road, and I own the land and purchase the land on Airport Road.
Okay.
And the Airport Road property has an existing sanitary sewer district already on it and water district. We have to form our sewer district on the northern parcel. So it makes sense that while we're doing all that, we can get started with the rezoning on the south parcel.
Okay.
So what you're seeing is my first stab at what we could get started with on the south parcel. Eric wrote me a little bit of a synopsis of his thoughts on this whole thing. And one of the things that he wanted to do was connect. If you'll see that little, I come off of Airport Road and head north. And then there's a stub road that goes out to the east.
Yep.
He was very concerned that that would connect to Summers Drive. And subsequently, I have had contacts with Randy Farnsworth, who owns that piece, and Randy's agreed to join in. So now that road will be shifted a little further north, and it'll have access to Summers Drive, and then Randy will actually build some homes on his property that are similar to what we're building. So it opens it up and it creates more of a connectivity. One of the other big points in Eric's, review of the thing was the 40% green space. Well, we're trying to hit that. But then we were told at a meeting that we didn't have to have the green space in the MUO. It's supposedly it's different than the conservation subdivision. But if you look
It's
to the
kind of
west,
the discretion of the town board.
okay. So if you look to the west, there's that future flex development area. We would like to put apartment buildings in there, but if we have to have the 40%, that's where we would get it in that particular area. So that's an overview of the plan right now. We're looking for guidance, and we have no playbook to go by here. We just don't know how this goes. There's no rule book to follow.
Well, okay, so this plan is subject to change. You said it's already changing, right? Due to Farnsworth's.
It already changed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess the board, the consideration of tonight is to respond to the town board. Is this a good use of the land in terms of, you're looking at these single family residential, right?
Yeah, these are patio homes, yeah.
Patio homes, okay, but they're not attached. So
they're not attached, they're single family.
I guess, our response to the board is, do we feel this concept, this type of land use is appropriate for this particular lot? And should they consider moving forward with zoning it MUO, and then ultimately it would come back to us and we get into the site plan reviews and all that. I guess at some point, Rocco, I'd like to sort of see, as planners, we'd like to see the big picture and how this thing's all going to tie together. I don't think the board will have any issues with being considered for single family homes. I think it's probably appropriate for the MUO on small lots, relatively small lots, patio homes as you call them. But I'm open to any ideas or comments from the board. But again, I think we're not obviously looking at the actual plan itself because it is going to change in the first place. I think it's just responding to the board as to whether this type of land use is appropriate and it should be considered move forward as an MUO. Am I right, Eric?
Yeah, I think that it's important to kind of consider how it impacts the neighboring parcels. The MUO is not, it's really not designed and not meant to be just looking at one parcel, and probably it's more important to see how it will work in conformance with the neighboring parcels and even considering how those neighboring parcels might develop. That's where reviewing it based on the plans that we have is so important.
So in response to that, I control what would be considered a neighboring lands between what I own and what I have under contract. The only land I really don't control is a little strip along Summers Drive that Billatier, the owner I bought from, is owning. The school district property, which is a fixed parcel for the bus garage, and then another parcel to the south along Brickyard. The rest of it I control, and we certainly could, and we already have a plan that shows all of this built out. It's just that the zoning districts are different. So what you're seeing is my desire to do this section
phase one
of the
phase one, yeah,
of the industrial converted to an MUO. I don't know how far to go with that. Should I do an MUO on the north parcel, an MUO on the flex area? Do we leave the flex area industrial? I mean, I have more questions than you guys have, I think. No,
And I know, Rocco, the last time we were talking about some of the other parcels, we were talking about making this sort of a neighborhood concept, having amenities that the people who live here can walk to and use in terms of convenience stores. And I think we were talking maybe that Summers Drive might be a good opportunity to consider that type of use. And I mean, I guess, as Eric said, that it sort of fits into the whole concept of a neighborhood. And Bob, you know what we're talking about there, and Eric does too, because there was a recent email circulated regarding the concept of neighborhoods and what makes up a neighborhood. So again, I'm opening it up to the board. Ryan, what do you feel before you You freeze out there.
I think we've heard a lot from Anthony and Rocco about these parcels. And I think that I have a pretty decent idea of where they want to go and what they want to do with this. And I'm fully supportive of going forward with, this is the perfect place for development in our town. You know, yes, I support, I think we, at least if it was, I would love to see full support, big energy behind this going forward to support Rocco and Anthony to do something really cool for the community here. I think it's a perfect place to even have, you know, MUO, Rocco, if you do the whole thing, you can have reduced lots, sizes. You can go, you can bring a cool vision that reduces a lot of your infrastructure needs and condensed housing, walkable communities, and that can make, you know, this community, it could put a cool little another neighborhood on the map for us.
Ryan, that's the energy I'm looking for.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking for.
You know, I think that we have an opportunity to do something with the Uptown plan. I think patio homes like this might even help stimulate some economic development on Campus Drive. If people knew that they can move a business here and have 20 homes ready to go up for their employees to move to Canandaigua, this is a perfect location. They could ride their bikes to work. There's a lot of cool things that could go about this parcel. And, you know, I'm 100% supportive. It's a perfect project. So for us tonight, we just got to encourage the town board to embrace the MUO, to go from industrial to mixed use overlay. And then from there, the ideas can begin to flourish, you know, with the community.
Okay, well spoken. Bob, how do you feel? You think we're going in the right direction?
You're muted, Bob.
Yep. Hey, Ryan, you hear me?
Yep.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I have to be a little downer here, but the airport being so close is my concern. If we populate that area hugely, how would it'll affect the airport and the potentials of income that the airport would bring to us? So that has always been my thought process about how much people out there.
Duly noted.
I totally agree too, Bob. You know what I mean? Like, I really do agree with that.
We've sat down a number of times with the airport people, and we're cognizant of what, you know, their concerns are. And that's one of the reasons why the main density of residential is over on the east side. And ultimately, I think we're going to have open space on the west side that benefits everybody. That's what I think is going to end up, Bob.
Yeah, I like your plan. Yeah, it's better than what I saw before.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
And the ponds we're going to build are going to be more of a swale type thing that are designed to run out pretty quick. So we're not going to track geese, you know, which we know is a problem.
Yes.
Eric, your comment.
We haven't worked with Bob Minster at the airport real closely. So
good. Yep.
Eric, your comments, what you're bringing up now, were they shared or will they be shared with town board or is it just for our use? And Rocco's review? Eric?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I'll probably include this with the town or to the town board.
Well, it's a lot of good, things that you bring up here. And I think hopefully they should be looked at and be part of the consideration, whether they're considered at this point in the process or it's as we move forward with hardlining the plans. No, I think you should share these with the town board now as part of their deliberations in the MUO. But again, to get us moving on this thing, I'm hearing from Ryan, and I certainly agree that with some constraints regarding the airport, I think this is something that is is well founded in that area. It certainly would be appropriate. I would like to see some other uses, and that would be considered on properties other than the one we're looking at. And again, for my purpose, Rocco, if you can show us the big picture, that would be helpful. I know it's not set in stone, but it just shows us how, the roads are tied together, how this thing's going to look from a bird's eye view once you develop all the properties that you own out there.
Should I have that ready by the town board meeting or the next planning board? By the next planning board? By the
next planning board.
meeting?
Yeah.
So, all right, the timing wise, if this goes to the next planning board meeting, then it won't make the July town board meeting.
Right now, after today, where do we go? Back to the town board?
Right, the planning board will prepare a report, and then that will be given back to the town board. And the application will go back to them for their decision on whether to direct you to apply for preliminary site plan approval.
And then what plan do I bring back at that point? So we can use the plan we got now to go back to the town board, but then you're saying we need a preliminary plan to go back to the planning board, the next planning board meeting?
Rocco,
So, yeah.
Using my prerogative as chairman of the board, it would be very helpful to this board that we work together in looking at an overall concept of what's going to occur out there. It won't be anything formal. There'll be no, the MUO will be something that the board will be considering. And ultimately that may lead to site plan applications in the future. But I think in terms of the development of that site between yourself and the planning board, we're willing to give our time to work with you in coming up with a overall plan, concept plan that would be to the benefit of both you and the town.
I would rather do that.
So I'll.
Rocco, you said you'd rather do what? I'm sorry.
No. I would rather stay at the level we are at and get it correct and get the planning board and the town board and Eric and everybody else in the development office on board with what we're doing totally with the whole project, the next 10 years. It's gonna take us 10 years to do this. We're gonna throw it out there, do what we can do, but then I don't want to do site plan on the whole thing.
No.
I want to do site plan on a specific beginning point, phase one. Because once I start that, I'm designing a lot of things, and there's also a lot of other things that have to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you made an application for an MUO, and I will admit that application is very sparse on justifications for why the MUO should be applied to the property, but it's just a one-page application. And that's another thing that I was going to mention is the justification why this should be an MUO and why you see it that way. But based on what you just said, you want to sort of approach it the way we want to approach it, which is looking at from the total picture, but then breaking it into sections and phases that could be developed from Airport Road up. Does that work for staff? Does that work for Rocco? Does that work for the rest of the board?
I guess so. My question is, is that to say that I'll prepare a report for the July town board, but like a continuing discussion will be had with the planning board next month, or are we going to use the 60 days to provide a report to the town board and get it to them in August, let's say?
No. I think the former is the way to go.
Yeah, I guess, I'm sorry, this is Ryan. I thought the process was that a developer approaches us like they did over off of, we had two other projects that were considering mixed use overlay. When the town board kicks it to us right now, all that we're saying to the town board is this parcel is appropriate for mixed use overlay.
I think that's all we can say. We don't have anything else to go by.
And
In
then,
the past, I was just gonna say, in the past, we've kind of looked at it based on these 7 kind of intent things, included that in our report, and given that to the town board. But yes, that's essentially right, Ryan. You look at it whether you believe it's appropriate to include in the MUO.
because, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think we've had one development go through MUO.
That's
No,
what I think. That's what
the
I think.
the Creekview one did.
Creekview was mixed. Okay, Creekview was mixed MUO. Okay. Okay.
Was Stella? Was that in the MUO up there? Stella's
No, I don't
Farms?
think so.
Okay.
That was in the
Commercial before too.
Commercial, yeah. Okay.
We did some apartments also in the MUO before on the, I think it's more the east side.
Oh, the veterans?
Northeast side, yeah. We did some apartments. Not the veterans. It was a
Sweet.
small.
Yeah,
it was
you-
a smaller one. It was like one of the
Those
first
ones
MUOs.
Okay.
Well,
So I guess,
those are still zone mixed residential though.
yeah, we haven't had mixed use residential, right?
We have a multiple residence zoning district, which is what those ones are. Trolley Station, they're called. But they were rezoned to mixed residential, which follows a similar process, but yeah, that's how it's done.
So it seems I'm totally hearing what you're saying, Chuck. Like, I would love Rocco and Anthony. I would love to participate in a workshop where we could brainstorm and make this the coolest project in upstate New York.
Can we do that, Eric?
I don't see why not.
How would we do that?
Well, it would be, we usually with workshops, we either have it as a special meeting, we advertise it. And to be honest, it's much helpful in a workshop to be all crowded around a table. Which we can't do yet,
Yeah, I
but
think that
hopefully soon.
if we're gonna do something like that, that might be appropriate, and then, bring neighbors in and try to get kind of a vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you? Who would set that? Who would set that up? You, Eric?
Probably.
I'd like to do that before we go back. I'd like to go forward to the town board next, but then I would like to, before we come back to the planning board, have that workshop in between.
Yes.
Did you hear me?
I mean, all right now we're looking for is a go-ahead from the planning board saying, yes, this is a good use of this property. We agree with going forward with the rezoning. Is that what we're looking for tonight?
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Right. So,
Essentially, I think that if I'm gonna draft a report to the town board, that maybe you will include a statement to the effect that the planning board would like to hold a stakeholder meeting or something to that effect to,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, a workshop,
Clear.
yeah,
workshop on design.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
we can apply-
would love to do that.
Maybe we could apply for grants and get some, some outside funding to help out with some things. Seriously.
Sure.
Nice.
That takes a lot of time though, or more time if you're looking at,
Tons of time. We
getting
got 10
grant.
years, he said. 10 years.
Well,
No,
I'm
no,
saying
no,
if you're doing, like trying to get your design right now.
No.
we don't
I
want to
gotta
start in 10
I
years.
gotta start building houses.
We don't want to start in 10 years. It's a 10-year project.
All right, well, again, I felt when I saw this application, we didn't have a lot of information to go on. We had a one-page application and a site plan with a request to have it designated MUO from the town board, and they wanted to know what our thoughts on. I saw your comments, Eric, and they're all good comments, and they should be addressed or at least considered. And that's got to happen somewhere in the process, and maybe that's, as you said, submitting that to the town board as part of either your own or part of, well, I don't want it to be part of the town planning board's submission.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I think, yeah, we should just say that we think that the use is appropriate. And again, I couldn't read all those conditions that you had up there from the code, but that's what the application should address, that the applicant is saying that we feel for this reason that this property should be rezoned to MUO, and and all those and with all those justifications, and not having that, we can sit here and say, yeah, we think it's a good idea for the use, but I don't think we'd say much more than that.
Do you want to work through these 7 like we have in the past? And also, do you want to include in the report that you'd like the applicant?
Sure. I'll tell you what, I know it's getting late, but for the benefit of Bob and Amanda and myself and Ryan, to refresh our memories, why don't you got to bring them up so we can see them a little better, though.
Is that all right?
My tired eyes are.
Zoom in. There we go.
Oh, cool. You had it there. I thought you had it.
That's the number right there, I believe. So, community benefit. Oh, I'm in the wrong zoning district.
Incentive zoning.
There we go. Here we are. MUO. Can you read this, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay.
If I can
Here's
read
the
it.
intent. The intent is to enable a mix of land uses to occur once final site plan approval has been granted. Final site plan approval shall be subject to the following design standards. So, does the board believe that this is a site plan that will continue to attract appropriate development in order to expand upon the economic and fiscal base of the town in a manner that maintains a unique character of the respective growth node and contributes to maintaining a high quality of life within the community?
I think we can all say yes to that.
Is there anything that you want to add upon that as to like why you might feel that way, I guess, or what's the main consideration? Not to draw this out anymore, I apologize.
Well, appropriate development, again, we're somewhat, all we're looking at is the airport phase of it.
Do you want me to say that it's generally in conformance with the Uptown plan?
Yes. That's it. It's perfect location for new people to live in the community that's close to our economic center.
Okay.
I don't want to lose track, and while I'm thinking of it, I'll say it, that we somehow don't mention the airport in this, that it's a concern, but it's something that has to be addressed. So, for John, number 2. Not that it should belongs in number 1, but somewhere in our response
I think
letter.
there's another one. Might be number 3. But anyways, number 2, a site plan that encourages architectural and site design that is compatible with the site's surroundings.
We don't
really not
know what that is yet. We're not.
We don't know.
We're not there.
Yeah. I would just say, since the site surroundings are kind of vacant at this point, with the exception of the school garage or the bus garage, we might go to what the plan suggests. And I would just say that the architectural design is maybe not, and I did include that in my comments, that, let's see, anyways, design standards, garage is located in the side and rear yard, not facing the street. That's from the Uptown plan. Covered porches on the front facade, both of which I don't think match, at least what's shown there. So,
Yep.
Anyways.
See, I think, I'm sorry that it gets confusing to me, but I feel like a developer can't bring us the site plan that we're asking for in those plans until they have MUO designation. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like the chicken's coming before the egg, how can we request that a developer bring us those things to look at this stage, so that we recommend to the town board that it's worth it? And then if the town board said no, then all of that planning would be out of sight. It's tough to say that the site plan does that because we don't really have a site plan in front of us. This is just a preliminary sketch. This is just a thought, I think,
Yeah, and sure. I think Ryan, that's why we're asking for the workshop to sort of filter out or squeeze out all the details that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So at the very least, we could say something to the effect of the lot layout is again generally in conformance to the Uptown plan. However, a workshop may elucidate architectural and street layout.
And we would not withhold or we'd like to defer further detailed comments until we've had a chance to work with a developer at a workshop. Something along those lines. So we know in more detail, and not that, you know, the sketch plan is going to be the ultimate plan either, but at least Rocco has a better idea of what we're thinking, and we have a better idea what he's thinking. Okay?
Yeah, Chuck, I'm just looking for guidelines, you know? I want to do a good project. I want Ryan, like Ryan says, I want it to be something good. That's all I can say.
Well, Rocco, yeah, we're under a clock right now because you filed an application for an MUO. It's going through the process, and we're trying to, you know, follow that process and keep that going in conformance with local law, but at the same time work with you sort of off to the side on a sketch plan and a workshop, and to get more into the details of what this thing's going to look like, possibly look like ultimately. So it's sort of we're running down two tracks.
Okay.
All right, so the next one, 3, a site plan that encourages buildings that provide an appropriate transition between adjacent sites within the growth nodes. Again, I think that this can probably be consolidated with the previous ones. It's generally in conformance with the Uptown plan where it calls out mixed residential in this area. Site plan that encourages buildings that are protective of open space resources important to the town. In this, I will refer to the open space plan where it calls out there's a certain forest type that's on the western portion of the property that this stays away from. If there's anything to add, please feel free. Site plan that establishes a clear and consistent character for new structures. That one will kind of have to be more brought out with further conversation, I think. Site plan that reduces delays and avoids confusion with developers, landowners, business operators that are during the construction phase. This is another one that there's not enough detail at this point.
Yeah, Rocco's not confused.
Site plan that the planning board finds will minimize land use conflicts between adjacent sites. This is kind of where the airport comes in. I know Gene Crispin has mentioned the lights on the neighboring property, which after visiting it is probably a good concern. And then, you know, the industrial land across the way, but
again, just looking at this in general, our application for an MUO, I think the applicant should look at each one of these 7 criteria and take it and explain how they meet those, and submit that to us as part of the consideration as to whether this justifies an MUO, rather than, you know, again, we don't have a lot of information here to react to these 7 sentences because we don't have the information. So really, I think that future MUO applications ought to include, similar to what we do with shoreline guidelines. You know, how do you comply? Tell us how you comply. Tell us how you meet the MUO stipulations.
okay. We'll ask that in the future.
Okay. All righty. I think you wrote our report for us. If you want to circulate that to the board.
I'll write it and then send it to you guys.
Okay, and we can comment on it. Okay, great. All right, anything?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rocco. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, Chuck.
Have a
Thanks,
good night.
Ryan.
Stay
Thanks,
well.
everybody.
Rocco, is that a yearling in the back?
It is. Yeah. I got that over on Route 21 when I lived over on 21 there.
I bet.
See ya.
See ya.
Good night. All right. Going back to the June 9th meeting minutes, I think there were a couple corrections, but nothing major. So good job as usual, John. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 9th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes on June 9th.
Okay, I will second it. So if somebody doesn't have to go off mute. So it's a motion and a second for the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything, nothing from ZBA, nothing from Chris. We got a letter of credit. Everybody seen the resolution. It's for the Lucy property out on Hickox. It's been signed off by all the suspects, as usual suspects, as Tom used to say. So I'll make a motion that we do the release. I don't have the amount in front. Oh, you have it there.
$6,100.
6,100 even. Okay. Let's give the Lucy $6,100 back. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Bob seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything else? There's some activity with Borough and Lakeside Estates on the basin, and it looks like that's going to get resolved as to who's going to maintain the basin up there in Lakeside Estates, so that the property owner wants to build that on that large lot can move ahead with drawing down a building permit. Anything else, Eric, you have?
No,
Ordinance-
I was just I'll send you guys a link to some training. I just kind of came across it. The American Planning Association has these very nice, like, hour-long, not podcasts, I can't remember the right term for it. Anyways.
Webinars.
Yeah, that's it, webinars.
Yep.
Sorry. There's some good courses there. So if you guys want to check it out, and then obviously if you take them, let me know.
Okay.
But
Very
that's
good.
it. I'll send that to you guys tomorrow.
Alrighty, next meeting is July 14th, so we get a little time off. We don't have what that agenda is entailing. I don't think it's real bad. I don't think that one's bad. It's the one after that is all loaded up. So anyway, if we don't see you before, I will take a motion from Ryan to adjourn. Can you see the clock, Ryan?
So moved.
9:45.
9:45, by the way. Don't get bit by mosquitoes out there. All right, I got a motion. I'll second it. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone. I know it was a long meeting,
Thank
but
you.
I think we got a lot done. Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Eric,
Yep.
what's happening with Sager Marine?
That's in the city.
Yeah, I know. Do you know?
No, I have no idea. I
Shut-
think got bought out by somebody from like Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
I wondered if they were going to make that into a restaurant.
That'd be nice. It certainly looks like they're doing some nice things to it, but I don't know. It looks like it's still going to be kind of just Sager.
Yeah, just like a boat sales again still.
Yeah.
It'd be a perfect place for a restaurant, you know what I mean? Almost like they do on the barbecue joint up on the Genesee. You know,
Yeah.
looking over the lake like that on the second floors. It'd be an awesome restaurant. But
It's unfortunate that there's not more options there down by the lake.
yeah, right. Any chance we might be in person for July 14th?
Yeah, there's definitely a chance. I think the governor's executive order expires on July 6th or something like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for us because we have to have our notices out prior to that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to kind of figure it out. But I imagine we might move to in-person meetings, but still kind of work with Zoom on the side.
Oh, it'd be great to do that. I think we should do that all the time. We should allow people to be able to attend meetings with Zoom. Why not do like a hybrid? If we could, it'd be really cool to have a hybrid. If there's a developer or somebody that's in Syracuse or Buffalo, they could attend meetings virtually. It's kind of cool. It's changed.
It is very nice. And I think we will because there's, the population of our town is quite a bit older.
Yeah.
So they don't want to risk any health issues or something like that, and they want to attend by Zoom because it is easy enough. Why not?
Everyone knows it now. You know what I mean? So it's cool.
Yep.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for your good work, dude.
No problem.
Talk to
See
you
you,
later.
Ryan.